Ruby and Olivia are joining as well. The live is preparing. Ruby and Olivia are joining as well. The live is preparing.
Dylan, I think you may have a little bit of feedback from your YouTube.
As well. The live is Good morning, Nebraska, and welcome to the first annual Scout Nebraska Ag Live. My name is Dylan Mangel, and I'm here reporting live from the East Campus at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the UNL Plant Pest Diagnostic Clinic. I'm an extension plant pathologist, and I'd like to welcome you all to our first ever live extension virtual event from across the state. So today we'll be streaming live from 9 a.m. to noon. And we'll be jumping across the state every 10 minutes or so, looking at real-time conditions. We're going to be looking at disease pressures and active trials directly from our extension educators and other ag professionals from around the state. So before I kick things off here, I just want to introduce some of our co-hosts that are in the room. If anyone else wants to share their screen, you can see Talon Muse first of all. We've got Dirk Charlson here. And we're going to have others joining us throughout the morning, adding commentary, adding questions, and sharing their individual thoughts on what's going on with the fields that we're looking at. So first of all, let's just take a quick look at where we're going today. You can see we've got a map here showing the counties that we're going to be in throughout the day. So we've got good coverage across the row crop production regions of the state. We're going to be visiting the southeast part of the state where we've got individuals like Ratika, educators like Ratika Lamachain and David Wangila. Justin McMechan's going to be showing us part of the central part of the state, or the east central part of the state, with things like soybean gall midge. Kyle Broderick's going to be giving us a tour and talking about things going on in the UNL Plant Pest Diagnostic Clinic. Olivia Dooley's going to be in Saunders County, and then we've got Amy Timmerman and Tamara Jackson Zims up north. We've also have several educators in the southwest part of the state. We've got Talon Muse, Andrea Ralakovic, Samantha Daniels, Krista Mundy, and Ruby Collins coming in from out west. So we've got good coverage across the state, and they're going to be talking about a whole set of different problems. So here's our schedule for the day. We're going to be starting off with Talon Muse in the cornfields. Amy and Tamara are also going to be talking about corn. We've got black-eyed peas, we've got alfalfa, we've got soybean cyst nematode and western bean cutworms. We've got an interesting relay crop trial on the schedule. We've got irrigation, we've got sorghum, we've got northern corn leaf blight, and we've just got general problems from many things. So as well as sorghum Sudan grass later on in the day. So we've got a full schedule today. We're going to be rotating every 10 minutes or so, and we're going to be sharing this live all on YouTube. If you know any other growers, other educators, anyone else you'd like to share this with, please share our live stream. We're going to be up for the next 3 or 4 hours or so, and you can join and come back or leave and come back anytime. And we invite you all to add questions to the chat. We're going to be reading that chat live, and if anyone has any questions, we'll bring those up and get the correct people to answer those in the room so that they can share their thoughts on those problems. So we're slightly ahead of schedule, but I think one last thing I want to share is the bounty program, the UNL Scout Nebraska Bounty Program. We've issued 2 bounties as of right now, and there's still a couple days left in these first 2. What this program is a chance to drive engagement with educators and growers and ag professionals across the state. We're inviting you to take a picture of a bounty pest that we have selected. This one is tar spot of corn, and we also have white mold of soybean open as well. If you record a short video of that pest, post it online to Facebook or X, and use the hashtag Scout Nebraska, we'll find those posts and we'll enter every eligible post into a drawing. And we're going to select 2 winners for each bounty. to receive $100 cash and a Scout Nebraska hat. So if you're available, if you see those problems showing up, and we are seeing tar spot and white mold showing up across the state, take those and post them online. It doesn't have to be a long video, just a video showing what you've got, and you'll be entered in that drawing. Okay, well, let's get transitioned over and see if we can connect with our first scouter. That's going to be Talon Muse. He's in the field, and let's see what he's got to say this morning. Talon, can you
Yeah,
hear us?
thank you, Dylan. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you pretty well. So where are you at
So
this
I'll
morning?
talk slow in case my connection isn't the best, but I am actually a little bit already because I'm actually standing in a soybean field here in Dawson County, and I am going to scout this one because later this morning I'm actually going to be looking at an on-farm research field in Buffalo County for corn. And so I made that edit a little late, but I am going to flip my two here early this morning and later this afternoon for my counties and crops. So I apologize if anybody was tuning in specifically for that. But I've got a really good field here that I'm going to show you in Dawson County here for soybeans, and then another great one later this morning for over in Buffalo County. And so the one thing that I want to start by pointing out is that with soybeans right now, this field, we're starting to see the beginning of seed formation in those pods on those upper four nodes. So we have reached that kind of R5 stage for these soybeans. And then I walked through these beans for probably about 10, 15 minutes already this morning, and they are really clean. And about 5 minutes ago, I finally found a spot where we've actually got a handful of different things going on. So I'm going to go ahead, flip my camera, and hopefully everybody can see what I'm going to show here. So I am kind of going to in this plan. Maybe talk, see what
Talon, you're cutting out a little bit. So you're telling us you're in a soybean field, and we've seen a little bit of what you're seeing down there. It looked like you were showing us some foliar symptoms of potentially something like sudden death syndrome. You had some interveinal chlorosis on those leaves, and you had a plant that might have been wilted, or that looked stressed and had probably some diminished root growth. There we go. We can see it on screen now. Maybe if you want to stop sharing your video and we can just have you on audio, but I'm going to start by, I'll pull up some pictures of what you were showing.
Yes, sorry about that. Can everybody?
It's in and out.
No.
I'm going to pull up some pictures so I can show what I think you're seeing, because we can see that interveinal chlorosis happening on those plants. So I'm going to go over to the crop protection network. Can you still hear us, Talon? Well, we might have lost Talon for a minute there, but let's let him reconnect. What we're seeing is symptoms that look like this: interveinal chlorosis on the leaves. Now, I've opened up an article here for soybean sudden death syndrome, and you can see this is a pretty vivid symptom right here. You've got the green veins still, and then between the veins, we're transitioning to yellow or chlorosis, and then to brown, which is death or necrosis. It's just rotting tissue at that point, and importantly, it's dry. So that's happening because water has to travel from those roots all the way up that plant to then make it into those leaves and then from those veins between the veins. So that's the furthest point water has to travel in a plant. And that's going to be the hardest point for it to get to. So if there's anything disrupting water supply, you're going to see those symptoms start to show up there first. I think we can see you again, Talon, now. Can you hear us all right?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. So, and it's just about the curse of technology that I sit on the call before we start for about 5 minutes and everything works fine, and then we start and my internet cuts out. But um, so this here
Yeah,
is what I'm seeing kind of in the field. Can you see that?
we can see it.
So many things can cause this symptom. I'm sure Dylan just hit on a lot of that. And so one of the things that I tend to look for first, I've pulled this plant a little bit, is if there's any nice white fuzz on the stem of this plant. That white fuzz would be white mold, which I'm sure many of people have seen. This plant does not have that. And so we can kind of not maybe fully eliminate white mold from the equation, but it is less likely. And so the thing that we would do is we would cut the stem open, and if we could, we would try to look at and see how the stem has formed, or how the stem is looking inside. Because if inside the stem is rotted right in the center and along the center, you may have things like Dectes stem borer or brown stem rot. And those are diseases that are, I guess Dectes is a insect that I'm sure we'll see kind of throughout the day. And that usually shows up with kind of like dead petioles or limp petioles that aren't doing very well. And then brown stem rot will cause very similar symptoms to SDS, white mold, and all those other things that Dylan had covered earlier today. So I'm actually going to here turn my camera off for a second, and I'm going to split this stem and show you kind of what I would be looking for in that stem.
And while Talon's doing that, I'll share that screen. He mentioned there's some other things out there that can cause intervenal chlorosis. It's not always sudden death syndrome. So here's a great article on the Crop Protection Network. Here's one of sudden death syndrome, but we also see that brown stem rot can cause the same symptom, but in its case, it's going to have a rot inside of the stem. And notice it's not an empty rot. It still has that tissue in there. It's just rotted. Dectes stem borer can look the same, but it won't have the tissue. It'll have an open channel, often with the stem boring worm inside there. Stem canker can cause similar symptoms, but you might have cankers on the stem. That's definitely going to show up later in the season. Taproot decline, which we don't have in the north central region, but it's in the south. Triazole fungicide injury can definitely do it. Red crown rot is a new one that we might be getting soon, unfortunately, that can do it. But there's differing symptoms that go along with all of these, but it's really hard to separate those. So take the time and figure that out. Now, Talon, we can see your
Yes.
video again.
So I'm trying to get a good view of this stem here. I didn't get a perfect cut down the center, but you can see that for the most part, this stem is quite healthy here um, throughout kind of the lower portion. And so I normally cut down towards the base of the stem because a lot of these organisms are going to infect either as seedlings or at those lower flowers. Um, and they work their way down to the base a lot of times. And so usually the best spot to check is there by the base. And you can see that we don't have any of that stem rot on this plant. So this would not be brown stem rot or something that might show up here in the actual stem. White mold will also produce sclerotia within the stem after infection, and you'll find that here in that pith of that stem at where probably just below the node that it infected. So, okay. Now, moving on. This may be a little hard to see, so I apologize. But on this nearby plant, we have a soybean leaf that's got this small circular lesion on it. Dylan, how does that look? Are you still hearing me?
We're hearing you and seeing you. It's a little hard to see, but it looks like a frog eye leaf spot. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes. So this is frog eye leaf spot out here. There is very little out here. And so the main points with frog eye leaf spot is that it is a foliar disease of soybean, and it takes quite a bit to warrant a fungicide application because there's a lot of soybean foliage that can collect sunlight. And so these lesions, but in the case where we do need applications with frog eye leaf spot, we do have QOI or group 11 resistance documented in the state. And so if there is a need for management of this specific disease, you want to make sure you're using multiple modes of action and getting good coverage.
And we have tools available on the Crop Protection Network where you can see which products still work best on frog eye leaf spot. But it does seem in most of the country, we're seeing that the group 11 fungicides are just no longer effective on their own to control frog eye leaf spot, which is a big issue because we really only have three widely used modes of action. So losing one of those leaves us with two. Now the last two are more durable than that first one, so they'll last longer, but we need to use those responsively and mix mode of action products and use them to prolong their lifespan as long as possible.
Yeah, good deal. And then the last thing in this field that I want to hit on is down here.
Talon, that the connection doesn't like when you bend over towards the beans, I think.
Okay.
Oh, look at that.
So holding up, I did lose the beetle that was on this leaf when I picked it up, but you can see that there is some pretty good defoliation here. And so one of the things that we like to mention with defoliation, very similar to disease, there needs to be a lot of defoliation on soybeans before it warrants management. And so I believe the normal recommendation is to grab leaves from the bottom, middle, and top canopy. And then you need probably at least an average of more than 15% defoliation on each of those leaves. And that's at kind of that R5 stage. Earlier on, it's more because you'll get more and more leaves throughout the year. And then some of the more susceptible time periods, like those flowering periods, early reproductive stages, I believe it's around 10. So I hope everybody was able to hear what I was talking about today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Talon. We were able to see it
in Dawson County.
Thank you for coming in from Dawson County. We were able to see fairly well. It just seemed like when you bent down and got closer is when we lost connection a little bit, but it reconnected. So we were able to see all that. I showed some pictures. Maybe I'll show some pictures of frog eye leaf spot really quick. And it's 9:20, so we need to transition over. We've got Tamara Jackson Zims and Amy Timmerman who are going to join us from up north. So we'll see what they say. Thank you, Talon. And while we're waiting for Amy and Tamara to come on, I'm just going to share some frog eye leaf spot images.
Good morning.
So good morning, Tamara.
Good morning. Can you guys see us and hear us?
No, I'm having video issues.
Well, take your time.
It says failed to start the video camera. Ensure that no other app is using the camera and then try again.
Oh.
Well, Skittles.
In the meantime, while Amy's working with that, I'll just say Amy Timmerman and I, Tamara Jackson Zims, are joining you actually from Wheeler County this morning. We had a call in the last couple of days, and so we switched our locations for today, and we're visiting a cornfield in Wheeler County in the northern part of the state. And so there's plenty of things out here to see, and I'm eager to show you just a short scouting trip through the field. We found really an assortment of things out there. And so, Amy, how's your camera?
I'm going to unplug our mics and see if that makes a difference
Okay.
and go from there.
All right. So we'll go through the camera because there's no wind back here where we're at. I think you're going to hear us fine.
I can see you,
You know
Amy.
what I mean, guys? You don't see. Go, now we can see Tamara.
We
Oh,
can see
great.
you.
Oh, great. Good morning, everybody. Well, now that you can see me, I guess, and you can hear both of us.
Can you hear us okay, Dylan?
We can hear you fairly all right.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we keep going? We're out here in Wheeler County on the edge of a field, and we had some weather here last night, some wind, and that hasn't stopped us, but things are pretty wet here this morning. Looking at the corn here, this particular field is kind of in transition from about late milk stage into the early dough stage. So, we're getting out of the woods, so to speak, for needs for treatment. There is quite a bit of southern rust, tar spot out here. Let me show you a few things. But one of the first things we saw when we first walked in was some southern. You can see on here. All these orange pustules mixed in with some sizable tar spot stromata too. And so maybe I'll just flip this.
So you have both tar spot and southern rust in there.
I hope that's still. Can you see that okay?
We're cutting out a little bit. Maybe if you stood back where you started, when you got behind the truck closer, it seemed like it blocked out the signal a little bit. But you guys,
I can pick up the sample and show it to you too.
Yeah,
out here, there's actually quite a few other things.
There, you get to see Tamara's head and the corn leaf. Woo!
Well, I don't like that part. But,
I think it works
there's a
better
few
if you
things
hold them
out
up
here.
high like
In
that.
addition to that,
Okay.
it works better. Good.
Want to see the next one?
Yeah, so, just even going down the pivot road, we noticed some other things. And it's not unusual to see damaged leaves along the pad road, right? And so one of the things we've also seen is what we believe is some Goss's wilt out here, Goss's bacterial wilt and blight. And so notice that there's really dark water soaking on the edges of these lesions. There's some tears in this leaf. It probably gets hit by the pickups and four-wheelers going up and down this road. So it's not uncommon to see Goss's wilt out here on the edges of these fields like this. And so that's just one of many things that we found out here. I'm going to switch now. And so another surprise we had, Amy found this one. This is Physoderma brown spot. And so this is one that causes people quite a bit of alarm earlier in the summer when they see it because, you see the dark spots. When they develop in the midrib, it can look a lot like tar spot, especially when they're smaller. But the fungus that causes Physoderma also infects the leaf blade, and it causes a different looking symptom there, that yellowish orange small speck, which that one confuses people for southern rust. And so this is a good example to show everybody we're not worried about this. I wouldn't treat for it. Notice though, if you kind of pan back, you'll notice it's often in a banding pattern across the leaf. That's also a good diagnostic feature we often see for Physoderma brown spot. And so that's what this one is. I wouldn't treat for that. It infects in the whorl. In the whorl, because it's got water and it holds it like a cup. But I want to show you a few other things here. We have quite a bit of tar spot out here. Maybe this one's a better one to show. Let's show that one. And so there's quite a bit of tar spot on this one. This one's a little bit lower leaf. It's not bad on the ear leaves, but there's some other things on here too. And there's some bigger fisheye lesions around those tar spot stromata.
Like the one I have by my thumb right now.
And so we don't see that everywhere in every field. And even when you find it, you don't see it on all the stromata, but some of them often do. And these are some of the bigger ones that I've seen. That's that tan fisheye lesion that's right around that tar spot stromata. But on that same leaf, just down toward the tip and actually back up on the abaxial end, Amy's also got some corn blotch leaf miner damage. So that's the window painting from that maggot that's moving down through there under the surface and mining that out. And so there's actually quite a bit of corn blotch leaf miner. I'm not an entomologist. I don't like talking about insects out of turn, but from my colleagues in entomology, I'm told it's difficult to treat for this one. This is a fly that actually lays the egg, and then the maggot infects or gets in that leaf and moves around. There's probably better words.
Do you want to tell them about the stromata coming off?
Yeah, so we've made some interesting observations that when you have these fisheye rings around the stromata, I've seen both in the field and especially in samples that I've collected that the stromata fall out of that dead ring. And to me, that seems like a dispersal mechanism. Amy had one stuck to her shirt earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I've had them collect in the bottom of my Ziploc bags where I have a pile of stromata in there. And when you look at the leaves of the second time, you'll notice that there's holes instead in those fisheye lesions. And so that's kind of an observation I've made. Some of these stromata are pretty big. This one's about half an inch long.
Look at that one.
And so if you think about timing when this would happen, we've got a range of sizes on here from these little tiny black specks that are probably only 2 to 3 weeks old to some of these larger ones that I bet are 4 to 6 weeks long. And so we're looking at combination of age and favorable environment out here. This is an irrigated field, and it is very sandy out here, so they're probably irrigating pretty frequently, and that creates some very favorable conditions for a disease like tar spot.
So she showed you a really long one. I'm showing you a really wide, clumpy one. There's some really big stromatas on this leaf itself. Here's some more. I mean, look how big those bad boys are.
Yeah, those are pretty sizable. Last thing, I think I'm running out of time, I know, but I want to share. We do also have some northern corn leaf blight in this field. And, looking at these large cigar-shaped lesions, some of them have torn out now. It's gotten harder to tell northern corn leaf blight from Goss's wilt and some of our contemporary hybrids where,
Side by side.
we don't always see the freckling that we used to see with our Goss's wilt lesions. The water soaking on the top leaf here, to me, is pretty obvious, but you've got dark edges on some of these others. And so I really feel like I'm going to have to get a couple of them under the microscope. And if I find the spores from the northern corn leaf blight fungus, we'll make sure and send these samples off to my colleagues at Illinois who are doing a multi-state survey for us and will represent Nebraska.
So if you're looking at it right now, the top one where my finger's at, that is the Goss's wilt. And the one down here that I'm pointing to now is the northern corn leaf blight.
Assuming so.
But as you can tell, they look very similar this time of year, which makes in-field diagnosis sometimes a challenge and where we need those microscopes to really look at them closer. Tamara has all sorts of leaves, guys.
We do. We've had a treasure trove out here, sadly.
Shoot.
There was one more insect one or arthropod one I wanted to pull out, and I don't see it now.
Are we going to go show them the blotch?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a little walk.
Purple.
All right. You guys are getting low on time, but I'm amazed how much you found out there.
Well, here's
Yeah.
our last one.
Our last thing to finish on, people will start seeing more of this as time goes on. This is purple leaf sheath. You often see it just under that leaf collar on some of these leaves. This one's the ear leaf, but I don't worry about it because that doesn't go through. I'm going to show you what happens when I pull that off. So when you peel that back, that's not getting into the ear or the stalk if you see it further up. And so it's just usually when that leaf has accumulated or captured debris like pollen and the anthers, and then they start to rot. So don't worry about full leaf sheath. So thanks so
Wow.
much, everybody, for joining, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you guys so much from up there. You found a lot in that field. I was making a list as we go through it, and I saw corn blotch leaf miner, tar spot, southern rust, physoderma brown spot, Goss's wilt, northern corn
We
leaf
found
blight,
spider mites too.
spider mites, purple leaf sheath.
Oh, and spider mites. We didn't show you spider mites. You want to see spider mites, Dylan?
If we have a
If we can
second, I
find
think
it again.
Samantha's joining.
It's okay. Well, you can kick us off at any point in time.
What do
Of
you
course,
say,
we can
Samantha? Are
find
you
it
ready
now.
to roll? You got
We
a
were
full set
surprised to
there.
find spider mites in an irrigated.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. All right. Well, I'll let you jump over to Samantha then.
Well, thanks for showing us everything. We'll see you guys later today. Hi, Samantha.
There's
How
the
are you
spider
doing today?
mites.
Hi, Dylan. I'm good. How are you?
Great. So where are you at? You're in an interesting looking field.
Yeah, so I'm actually at the Stumpf International Wheat Center in Grant, which is in Perkins County, all the way to the southwest part of the state. And I am in a dry bean field. Specifically, this is a variety trial that we have here at the research farm in black-eyed peas. So I'm going to switch my camera around. And so black-eyed peas are kind of a fun dry bean. When they start to put their pods on, you can see they kind of come out the top of the plant.
Wow.
So they're an interesting kind of thing here. And so dry beans are really grown a lot in the panhandle, but we also have several dry bean growers down here in the southwest part of the state. Usually it's black-eyed peas, pinto beans. Those are kind of the more popular ones down in this part. Up in the panhandle, you get some of the Great Northerns and some of the other types of different varieties. So I did open one of the pods, and it's kind of fun. You can actually see, I don't know if that's going to be blurry or not, but you can actually see the markings of the black-eyed pea there. So what this is, these plots, these are 3 different varieties. We're doing variety trial. It's CB 46, California number 5, and California number 77. And we're just checking to see what the yield is going to be, yield differences, and see if there's a variety that performs better in the very dry, kind of arid environment out west here. So that's the goal of this study. So
Yeah.
as an entomologist, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just surprised how different that looks, how the diversity in dry beans out there. So that's, is it gonna, I mean, in other conditions, will they grow out and cover the soil, or are they pretty sparse for an arid environment?
I've seen, especially like irrigated fields, like irrigated pinto bean fields and stuff, they will kind of have this bigger canopy and they'll cover the soil, similar to what we see in soybeans. This being a dry land plot trial, and it was recently cultivated as well, because as you can see, we do have quite a bit of weeds, primarily palmer, other pigweed species. But yeah, these plants are they're kind of small, but they are starting to put put out their pods, and we'll just have to see kind of what we get from this study. But definitely, I've seen fields that have much better, I guess, coverage over the soil than this one. So that's a good question. One thing I will say is, sometimes with the terminal leaves and dry beans, you might see cupping. They start to curl up. A lot of times that's caused by thrips, which are these really tiny little insects that feed on the sap or the liquid from inside the leaf. So they can be a problem in dry beans sometimes. Occasionally, there's other plant bugs like the lygus bug. They will sometimes feed on the pods themselves, and you'll see like little puncture wounds in the pods. One of our big pests in Nebraska, especially out here, is western bean cutworm. And western bean cutworm is an occasional pest of dry beans in Nebraska. It's interesting because in other areas, like in the Great Lakes area in Michigan, western bean cutworm out there is primarily a pest of dry beans. So here it's usually corn, but in dry beans, it's really difficult. We can't scout for them. So the best thing to do is to use pheromone traps, but I'll be talking about that later this morning. So otherwise, I think that's all I had for the dry beans. I don't know if there's any questions or anything.
I've got questions, but I'll
Yeah.
solicit questions from the chat too. If anyone has any questions out there or commentary on dry bean production from the chat, feel free to add those in and we'll ask those. But my question is, you showed a pod. It actually looked like it was a full pod of dry beans. So this is more of a lower bean plant, and it's gonna put up basically a growth that has the pods on the end of it. How many pods will each plant in a situation like this set, do you think?
Oh, I would say, maybe could have like 2 to 6, depending. Yeah, it just kind of depends. With these being smaller plants, I'm thinking that it might can be on the lower end. But and here we have this little beetle here. I don't know. I don't think my camera is doing a very colorful beetle. That's actually a predator, so it's a beneficial. So it's good to see beneficial insects in our fields.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and Nebraska is actually the top producer of, I think it's Great Northern beans. So we are a major producer of some varieties of dry beans. Otherwise, some of our other dry bean production is not as big as some other states, but it is a significant part of the western part of the state.
Yeah. So next time you buy beans in the grocery store, turn that can around and see if they're Great Northerns and support Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly.
So we do
Very
have one
good.
question in the chat or a comment that the rows look wider than soybean rows. What's the typical planting width for dry bean production in the state? Do you know?
It just depends. I mean, sometimes it's the 30 inches. I've worked with a grower that would drill his dry beans in, and he had 10-inch spacing. So it really just depends on what folks are choosing. I think the 30-inch is more common, especially with irrigated. But I've seen a variety of different row spacings.
Good point. Yeah, I've seen,
Yeah.
it seems like equipment availability is what drives those decisions. So
Yep.
whatever their rotating crop is, if they're a wheat grower, maybe they're planting with a drill. If they're irrigated, they're probably growing some corn too. So they're going to use their other planters, and they follow that. And then there's a whole bunch of 36-inch row planters out there for some reason.
Yep.
That are still being used. So that's common too, I think.
Definitely. And this what I'm in here, since this is a research plot, it's a little different. It's whatever research equipment we have here that we used. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we have significant difference between the different varieties. So
yeah, that's excellent research. We've got great conditions for dry bean production out there. It's a good niche for the state. So it's great to see us getting data on what could work well and expanding into different types of dry beans.
absolutely. Yep, definitely. Yeah. And then one of the issues too is a lot of the insurance companies, they need, kind of those survivability or adaptability letters that we provide through extension to the insurance agents. So the more data we can get on variety, on population studies, any of those things. So another thing I'll say real quick is if anybody out there is interested in doing on-farm research in dry beans, please reach out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great opportunity to gain more data about a production system and really help hone what's going to give the best return on those fields and on those crops.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thanks,
Yeah,
Samantha. I think it's time we're going to switch over back to Talon. He's ran over to, I think he's in an alfalfa field this time. Are you on the call, Talon?
sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Samantha.
Yeah, I am. So I am now tuning in from essentially the corner of the field that I was in this morning. So I was in the irrigated soybean section and I wandered over, and hopefully to get a little bit better connection, I am actually sitting on some hay bales.
Good choice.
So I am not out in the field. I'm just north of Highway 30, so hopefully our connection up here is a little bit better. But I did go grab some samples because I was wanting to show everybody some alfalfa. So you can kind of see this. I'm going to flip my camera to zoom in a little bit. Alfalfa here, these purple flowers, everybody knows alfalfa is a nice forage crop for the state. That's a legume. It can fix its own nitrogen. It's really valuable here in the West where we're a little bit drier. One of the things that I would talk about are just kind of the conditions that we're seeing out here this year, because production
Uh-oh, the hay bale. I don't know if the hay bale's high enough, Talon.
but we're still
We're hearing you in and out. We lost you at what production is like out there. Can you hear us by chance? You might have.
I'm coming in and out with you as well.
Dirk is concerned that you might have fallen off the hay bale.
Maybe. So here, maybe while I'm doing my quick summary, I'll turn my camera off.
Okay. I'll show a beautiful alfalfa picture.
Yeah, thanks. And so I was talking earlier about just kind of the rainfall that we've gotten in kind of the central part of the state, which I believe has been very variable. And I think our meteorologist, Eric Hunt, has said that quite a bit as well. And so one of the things is that just the other day, last week, we had rains from anywhere probably from about half an inch all the way up to 4 inches, probably within a single county. Last week, there was a bit of a storm that rolled through and then just kind of sat east of Lexington, where people were recording up to 4 inches of rain on some of those fields or at their homes. And then around that, they were getting maybe an inch, which we're still happy to see an inch. An inch is a good amount of rain. But based off the drought that occurred here early this spring, we are still recovering. And so on the drought monitor, you can tell that Dawson County is still, I believe, in at least D2, if not D3 for most parts of the county. And then that can get even worse as we go farther towards where Samantha was just showing from Grant and the southern panhandle. Those areas are really hurting from the drought and even still those fires. So alfalfa production is really big for supplementing those cattlemen that don't really have access to their pastures because they're and so having forages is really important for this part of the state when we're in drought. And so one of the things we have here in Madison County is we do a decent amount of organic alfalfa production, as well as just in general, a majority of our alfalfa crop are going to be on the corners. And so that's something that I think is kind of unique to central kind of western Nebraska. We still have plenty of irrigation. Non-regions tend to be a crop that is a little more drought tolerant like alfalfa. And so see.
So let me verify what I heard from you, Talon. You were saying that the majority of alfalfa is going to be on dry corners. It's not irrigated out in that region.
A majority of the alfalfa will be on kind of like non-irrigated corners. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So if I turn my camera on, I can't tell. Are you looking at me or are you looking at alfalfa right now? Okay.
We're switching back to you, and we can see you now.
Okay.
You're
So
still
here's
up on
our
the bale.
alfalfa.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so my feet are dangling but um a couple things. Alfalfa does have leaf spots. So these are very similar to other crops in that there are just bacterial and fungal pathogens that infect the leaves. Um, and so you can apply fungicides. However, I believe I would say most people view alfalfa as a low input crop. So unless you're really shooting for very high quality alfalfa, um, most management I would not say is needed. However, I think we'll have David Wangila, an entomologist, on later today that will talk about alfalfa weevils. And those are a large issue, especially there but prior to first cutting. And so right now, this field that I'm sitting outside of, we are prepping for the third cutting. I believe the grower swather has been giving him some issues, but they'll be up and at it as soon as that's running. So alfalfa production is plentiful out here in central Nebraska, and I think something to keep a watch of as maybe we still recover from some of the fires that we had this early this spring.
Mhm. So how long is alfalfa going to be flowering?
So alfalfa being a perennial crop, it flowers throughout the season. You'll cut it, it'll regrow and flower again, and then you cut it. And I believe in this area you can usually get about 4 cuttings a year, sometimes a 5th cutting on years where you get good rains and um, warm conditions to really boost growth. And so we're a little bit over halfway through, I would say. I bet they do get a 4th cutting this year, so long as the rain doesn't stop. We still need some more rain to get through, but and one thing that I've learned being out here is that in a pure alfalfa stand, the quality actually gets better as you go through the year. I believe you get a little less stemmy. Your first cutting has a lot of the thick stems, but as you cut it and go through the season, you'll get more and more leaves and those kinds of things. The big issue with alfalfa is weed management, though. So throughout the year, you probably have a decrease in stand because you're cutting, you're baling, all those kinds of things, a lot of passes over the field, those kinds of things. And so your stand can decrease and you can end up with a lot of weeds. And so that is one thing with alfalfa that you need to be aware of and have a good plan for your alfalfa crop. So, and then it ends up in a nice big old bale like this.
And those bales have multiple uses as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So a lot of it gets used as a forage, but I know we've all seen these set outside at the uh like big bears and whatever that they form out of these hay bales is always fun to see
Yeah, I
and
always
things like
appreciate
that.
a
I
good.
saw somebody using a hay bale on the side of a road to cover bare dirt next to some construction. So really anybody.
Well, thanks for showing us, Talon. I think we're ready to switch over. It's 9:50 and we're going to switch over to Olivia, but I always enjoy a good hay bale turkey come November. Hay bale pumpkins, they're not bad either. Olivia, it looks like we can see you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. The
Okay,
connection's
perfect.
pretty good.
Awesome. So I am in Saunders County, Nebraska this morning, just south of Meade, Nebraska. in one of our soybean fields at NREC. And unlike some of the cool foliar diseases that Amy and Tamara and Dylan or Talon talked about, I'm going to talk a little bit about soybean cyst nematode. So I'll just show you, turn my camera here. The field looks pretty good. This field is also at NREC. We have a sprinkler system where we can irrigate it. So that's a great tool as well. But for soybean cyst nematode, the best time to sample for it to know if you have SC in your field is typically right after harvest. And it's super simple to do. I actually brought a probe out here with me today just to kind of show you. All you need is one of these tools and a bucket and then some soil sample bags. So how you want to sample is typically 10 to 20 samples for 20 acres. Put those samples in your bucket and then just dump that bucket in a bag. That's the hard part for a grower or a crop consultant. But thankfully, the Nebraska Soybean Board actually sponsors the testing program here in Nebraska. So once you take your samples and put them in a bag, you can send them to UNL, and the soybean pathology lab, Dylan's lab, and the one that I am in actually will test those samples for you to see if you have soybean cyst nematode in your field. And then if you do have it, we can tell you at what level your population is at, whether it's low, high, or just a pretty average level. So I think typically per year we get anywhere from like 700 to 1,000 samples sent into our lab that we give growers those results to help make management decisions with them on their specific farms and in their specific field. So we've seen soybean cyst egg counts anywhere from a low level, like 60 eggs, to super high levels of 20,000 eggs across the state of Nebraska. I think that we've had positive cases in 60 or 63 different counties as of the first of this year. So a lot of times anywhere where soybeans are grown in the eastern half of the state, the soybean cyst nematode is there also. It's just not at a super high level in every field yet. But yeah.
Yeah, so we've continued to see those nematodes move west and getting into new areas where beans have been, soybeans have been pushing west as well. It sort of followed them out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it kind of depends on the area of your field. So a lot of times the above ground symptoms will just look similar to a lot of other signs of plant stress. It might be chlorosis, stunting of plants, or wilting. So really the only way to truly know if you have SCN is to sample your soil, because you can't see it with your naked eye below the ground unless you're really trained and can see the cyst actually attached to the roots. But a lot of times with all the soil and other debris, you can't, it's hard to do.
Yeah. My eyes aren't good enough either. They're too small for most people to see. Um, but they're there. And another thing, when you extract roots from the ground, they'll fall off because their life cycle is dependent on them staying in that soil. So you've got to dig them very gently and ideally be in a really sandy soil to find those. But one thing I'll mention is we see more yield loss in areas with higher sand, in soils that are higher sand, and in soils that are higher pH. So that seems to be where yield loss can accumulate. A bonus though is we can really hide some of the damage with irrigation. They're losing the ability to take up nutrients and water. And if we can really supplement that with a lot of irrigation, we can hide these symptoms, but it's still there and it's still sapping yield. That's why this is sort of a hidden parasite.
Yeah. And you mentioned the sand and pH level. The SCN Coalition is actually a really good resource. They have a tool where you can put in your specific pH of your soil, the sand percentage, and then how many eggs that we found in your sample. And they'll kind of give you an estimated yield loss. And then based on how many bushels you think your crop is going to be and the price of soybeans, they'll actually give you a dollar per acre loss based on your infestation that you have.
Yep. Yep. Um, it's important because you talk about that egg count number, but that egg count is per unit of soil, which is, tell them how big of the unit of soil those egg counts are.
It's just 100 cc of soil, so not much at all. It's kind of just like a handful, basically.
Yeah, it's
Like if
like
you cupped your
a
hand,
cup.
it's about a handful. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, but those numbers, they range widely. I've seen 80,000 before in my time here. Eggs per 100 cc, so a little cup of soil having 80,000 eggs in it. They can get out of control. And how many, their life cycle, how many generations can they replicate in a season, and how many eggs per generation?
Yeah, so eggs per generation, I would say minimum it's probably 500 um, on the lower end of things. And then every 35 days, there's a new generation happening. So within a growing season, you're going to have multiple generations where that population is just going to continue to increase throughout the growing season and the whole life cycle of the plant.
Yeah, so they can really get out of hand. What else are you standing near out there? So this is our sprinkler field at Eastern Nebraska Research and Extension Center south
Yeah.
of Meade.
We've got some sunflowers planted this year. I'll walk over there and show the sunflowers.
Give
Show
us
the
a
good
close
part,
up. Give
the
us a
good
close
part of
up
the
of,
field.
yeah, show us the best part. Don't show them the
See,
bad parts.
they look great.
They look
I won't
beautiful.
show I won't show the other side. Yeah, there's actually a couple of them that already have the flower out, but I mean they're pretty thick in this half of the field at least.
So we are
So
new to growing sunflowers in our lab, and we did it because we need a rotation, but we're researching disease, specifically white mold at that location, and soybean is a white mold host, and sunflower are white mold hosts. So it's a good rotation if we want to maintain disease so we can research those type of things. We had to replant this field because I'm not a very good sunflower farmer, but those flowers that are out already were from the first planting that survived, that didn't get ran over when I replanted on top of the same row. Could you show us one with a flower?
yeah, I'll walk down here real quick.
It
They're
actually looks
definitely
good.
better. Yeah, it's pretty thick on the west end of the field, but here we go.
Look at that.
Yeah,
We're
there's
we're
only two, but
Oh man. Well, next year we'll do better.
that's
I
right.
keep
That's
saying
right.
that. All right. Right behind you, we've got an on-farm research trial in that big field. And on-farm research, we scale up our small plot research and we do fewer treatments, but we do bigger areas so we can really compare that to what an actual farm would be like. That field right there had really bad sudden death syndrome. So we went in this year working with the farm staff at Eastern Nebraska Research and Extension Center and put in a new seed treatment trial for sudden death syndrome. We've got multiple seed treatment trials around the farm. This one happens to be in the new Syngenta product, Victrado. So we're excited to see how that turns out. It's really one of our first times getting to try that product, especially at a large scale. So it'll be an exciting new trial. But all of that research and our other seed treatment trials are going to come out in the on-farm research book that comes out at the end of the year. And they've got a series of meetings that go along with that as well. Any last comments, Olivia?
I don't think so.
Yeah, everyone take advantage of the free soybean cyst nematode testing. Here's one of those soil bags. We'll mail these out to you if you'd like to go sample for that. And you can just bring them right back to the UNL Plant and Pest Diagnostic Clinic, and we're going to count them and send you out a result. Well, thank you for joining us, Olivia.
Yes, thank you. See you later.
Have a good one. Bye. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm good.
morning.
How are you?
Good. You're coming in live from a cornfield.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, I am. So I'm currently in the field close to the West Central Research and Extension Center. In this area of the field, we did not do any application. So you can see quite a lot of damage and all kind of different corn pests. So one of them that I would like to mention today is a Western bean cutworm, and you will see why. So Western bean cutworm is really significant pest of the corn and dry beans, and not only in Nebraska, but along the Corn Belt and also some parts of the Canada as well. This year, it's quite unique. We had flight that started approximately 10 to 15 days earlier than usual. So we had moths flying like in the beginning of July, and we had really high infestation here. So I will guide you through, and I will show you some things that we have here. So Western bean cutworm, when they start flying, they mate and then they lay eggs. As you can see, this is not really on the close to the tassel, but as I said, they are laying eggs in the corn, and especially because this year they started earlier. So usually we can see those egg masses on this area or even more closer to the tassel. So small larvae, like this one, for example, or even smaller. This is like second instar right now. They climb up to feed on a tassel tissue. And then after that, they migrate down to feed on a silk, as you can see here. And after that, like third instar larvae, I just saw one. Let me try to find it if it's still up. Well, we lost that one. So yeah, but we can see this a small one. So they go inside of the corn ear, and then they can feed in a one corn ear, and then they can change their mind and then go to another ear and then make damage there as well. So as example, I wanted to show you this one, and we did not stage this. So right now we have really big caterpillars inside of the corn ears, like this one. So as you can see, already tip of the corn ear is eaten.
Wow.
And we have this frass here. Yep. So for this specific one, I think they would need at least like 10 or more days to grow, and maybe a little bit more, and then they're gonna drop to the ground. And they will spend the rest of their life there until next spring, where they should start flying as a moth. So because of all these things that can happen in a cornfield, there are different strategies how we can control them. So early in the season, before you plant your corn, you can choose corn traits that have VIP3A BT protein that can still successfully control them. So VIP3A BT protein is included in corn hybrids such as Leptra, Triceptra, or Viptera. So I would like to mention that you need to check your corn hybrids before you plant them. And also, we recommend still scouting those fields. That doesn't mean that Western bean cutworm will not lay eggs on those corn. It's not gonna repel them. Those eggs will still hatch, and larvae will start feed on the corn. Once they start feeding on a corn ear or silk or even tassel, consequently they will die. The problem is that that's the only protein that can control them right now. Another strategy that we have is to spray for them. So in order to decide if you need to spray insecticide, you need to scout your fields. So we recommend going inside of the corn, randomly select 5 different points through the corn, and then scout 20 plants in each point. So at the end, that will be 100 plants that you checked, and you should check for the egg masses, as I showed here, or even smaller larvae. And then if you have 5 to 8% of the infestation, that means that you should consider insecticide application. When a corn price is good, you should look into that lower economic threshold, which is 5%. If corn price is not that good, then you can consider that 8% or even a little bit higher infestation level. So this year was quite unique. In around North Platte area, we had fields that had 13 and 16% of the infestation, and some of the fields close to Samantha in a Gothenburg, not in a Gothenburg, in a Grand, sorry, they had even more than 20% of infestation. So we had really high pressure this year.
Wow.
So when it's the situation like this, we advise spraying insecticides. So those insecticides can be applied using aerial application, which is really fast, but it can be a little bit more expensive, or chemigation. But for the chemigation, farmers needs to use insectigator. In some case, they use vertigator, but they really need to check how that one works and to make sure that everything goes smoothly across the field. Another thing that I want to mention regarding the chemigation, so those sprinklers on the pivot system or lateral, depends which one farmers have on their field, should be above the corn tassel or somewhere in between corn tassel and kind of this part here. So we do not recommend chemigation if they have that drop nozzles that are really beyond the corn ear or around here, because at the time of the insecticide application, those larvae are usually close to the tassel or in between tassel and ear. So if they have drop nozzles below that point, they cannot control them anymore. So except the Western bean cutworm, we have in this field a lot of other pests. So we could see corn earworms in some cases. I will try to, so it's here. So we also had quite big pressure of the corn earworm. So a good or bad thing for farmers is when they have corn earworm, they don't have any other pest inside of the corn ear, because corn earworm usually eat Western bean cutworm or even other larvae of their species, like another corn earworm. So it can be only in single corn ear. Like corn ear, Western cutworm, we can find different larvae. In some cases, we found even 4 larvae inside of the single corn ear, which means they can really make a significant yield loss. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I'm just curious so when they leave that ear and they go to the soil, how deep in the soil are they going? And when they come back out of the soil next year, how far will they travel?
So they can go up to the 20 centimeters into the soil. So after that, when they emerge as adults, they can travel quite significant distances. I'm not sure exactly how far they can go, but for sure they can go from one field to another. They are good flyers. So, and especially if we have some strong winds, as we have in Nebraska, wind can carry them even in longer distances.
Wow. So you talked about there's some resistance or traits that are better right now. Were there others that resistance developed too?
Yes, unfortunately, Cry1F, it's not affecting any. It's not effective anymore. So any trait BT corn hybrids that have Cry1F, it's actually not gonna work to control Western bean cutworm. So that leaves us only with one BT corn hybrid, actually trait, which is VIP3A. And that's it that we have so far. I'm hoping in a close future we will have at least one more, because as you know, relying only on one BT protein, it's not good strategy for over the long period of time due to the resistance. Mhm.
Especially with a population that can move as far as that too. They're going to spread that resistance. We're about to get our
Exactly.
we're about to get our first BT trait in soybean for a nematode. So that'll be exciting to see how that works out.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see. Exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Andrea. I think our time is up, but your guys' service was really good, and your camera person did a great job as well. So thank them for us. And
Thank you. Thank you.
so now we're gonna jump back to campus actually to see the UNL Plant Pest Diagnostic Clinic. We'll see you guys later. So we've got Kyle Broderick coming in from the clinic.
Hello. August in the diagnostic clinic is always it's an exciting time. We have a very full cooler full of samples. So anyone who is maybe waiting on results, I apologize. Send me a message and we'll get to them. But this time of year, we're really seeing everything. The big thing on soybeans right now has been a lot of Phytophthora. And so, we're seeing some plants come in. They have that very characteristic staining of the stem right above the soil line that kind of moves up. And then if we split that stem open, we can see all of that staining that's occurring too. The other fun thing that we tend to see with soybeans this time of year, and we'll see if I had one earlier, but he crawled away. Oh.
He crawled
So
away.
we have a completely hollowed out pith. His Deck D stem borer is very active. So again, it's never just one thing that we find on something. And if I want to look hard, I can find disease on anything. But why do we even send stuff into the diagnostic clinic? That's probably a question that some people have. We have disease ID apps. A lot of you guys have a lot of experience walking through the fields, but sometimes there is some strange stuff that shows up. For instance, moving to corn, we have this nice mosaic and modeling appearance across the entire leaf. And that wasn't just the only leaf, but multiple leaves within that field showing these types of symptoms. Now, this is pretty characteristic for one of our corn viruses. I don't know which virus it is. If I were to guess, I would suspect that it's maize chlorotic mottle virus, but could also be maize mosaic virus, wheat streak mosaic virus, high plains virus. There's a lot of stuff that we can see. But one of the cool things that I have the ability that I can do here in the diagnostic clinic is we have our scopes. And so I like to look at everything up close. And right here we have this is actually cut out of. So we had this plant here, had this leaf, a lot of symptoms that look very characteristic of bacterial leaf streak. We have it backlit. There's that nice yellow halo around it. But we cut a little bit out of that leaf, put it under the microscope, and all of this white stuff, that's the Xanthomonas. That's the bacteria that is literally oozing out of that leaf. And so that's one of the ways that we can look for at least some of our bacterial diseases. Some other fun stuff under the microscope is earlier, Tamara and Amy were showing some leaves that kind of looked like this. Right? And so this is Physoderma brown spot that we're looking at right here on this leaf. But then as we look at it under the microscope, here we can see those red blotches. But then let's see if I can get it in focus. If you guys can see these little red balls that are inside of the leaf tissue, and here we have a bunch more up here, that is actually the pathogen that causes Physoderma brown spot. So we're able to see it kind of growing and there in the leaf. And now one of the last things that I wanted to show are sometimes we just get these indiscriminate leaf spots that show up. Can be all sorts of things. Some maybe look a little bit like gray leaf spot. Some look like northern corn leaf spot. Some maybe look like southern corn leaf blight. And some of these also look like bacterial leaf streak. But under the microscope, again, we can tell all of those apart. And so I apologize for everyone having to watch me focus and now find the spores that I had at one point. Where did they go?
What's happened?
So
Where'd they go, Kyle?
where did that's always the fun thing is I had loads of them, and then as soon as I went to go show something else, then I lost them. But we do still have some that we can see, and I apologize. It's not the greatest view there, but this is what I'm actually looking for underneath the microscope. And so especially some of these nondescript, these fungal leaf spots, they can look very, very similar out in the field, and their control can be wildly different. A lot of times our broad spectrum fungicides work pretty well to control most of them, but there's also sometimes we have leaf spots that don't need to be managed. We don't need to control every pathogen that we see out in the field. So, any questions?
I always tell every group I talk to take advantage of working with the UNL Plant and Pest Diagnostic Clinic. It's pretty easy. It might be hard to get a sample here sometime in peak summer, but I say it's an extremely good value for them what they get, because disease management is disease specific. So making sure they actually know what they have. For what's the base charge now?
So right now it's $25 for our base fees, and then if we have to do additional testing, we will charge based on the types of testing that are required. Yeah. That said, I would say probably 80% of the samples that come through the clinic, it's just that base $25 fee.
And you'll typically call if there's going to be anything extra to get approval first.
Yep. We certainly will. We do have our sample ID form, and there's a box to check on there that says, if you want to just do the basic fee, or if you are willing to spend some more on the sample. The other thing that I'd like to mention, I know I'm kind of over time already, but can be reached at plantclinic@unl.edu. Again, that email address, plantclinic@unl.edu. That's monitored by myself, our insect diagnostician, and our office staff. So somebody will see those messages.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Kyle. If anyone out there has something and they don't know what's going on in their field, Kyle's clinic is an excellent place to start. So thanks, Kyle. We'll catch up with you later.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, Chris, we can see you well.
Let me
So
get my
you're-
camera. Let me get my microphone on here. How y'all doing this morning?
Good. We can hear you good.
All right. How's my service? I know everybody's had trouble with that this morning.
You know, it's been in and out. I'm actually surprised. A lot of people's are doing pretty good. So I don't know. I think we've got a lot of overcast skies here across the state. I don't know if that impacts it, but yours looks pretty good. So where are you at?
So I am out on the Phelps-Gosper County line. I'm with a farmer, and he's gonna tell us a little bit about his relay cropping system out here. He's doing soybeans. Let me flip my camera around, and I'll introduce you if I can find it. There it is. So this is Nolan. Nolan, say hi to Dylan Mangel. He's our soybean pathology expert.
Hi, yep, Nolan High from Bertrand, Nebraska.
Howdy,
Can,
Nolan.
can you hear him good?
We can hear him good.
All right, cool. So Nolan, I met you because I came out here to look at your relay cropping system. You're doing soybean with wheat. Why don't you just tell everybody a little bit how you got into it, what you've seen from it, what you enjoy about it, and maybe even some of the downsides.
Yeah, so we got into it from just thinking about economics perspective. For us, corn has been our main crop for a long time. Generally, we can make more money growing corn. But to get to a rotation, right? Soybeans has traditionally been our rotation. For my life, anyways. And but we always struggle to make money in that rotation, and even a lot of times just lose money growing soybeans. But you still got to rotate. Otherwise, you'll have problems with your corn crop, as you guys know. And so started looking into, how do we maybe grow, two kind of, I don't want to say crappy crops, but, lesser crops together, to generate more income. And so we came up, it's not a new idea to me. Actually found it from a couple guys on Twitter, is where I first saw the idea. And so, we've just adapted it to our system. And so basically what we do, the easiest way to describe it is, the whole field's on 7.5-inch centers for plants. And so we plant 4 rows of wheat, 7.5-inch spacing, and then in the fall, and then we'll come back in the spring, and we'll have in our drill, we blocked off, so we plant 4 rows, block 4 rows, plant 4 rows. So there's gaps out here in the fall when we plant our wheat. Then we come back in the spring, and now that we're farther into it, we actually custom built a planter to plant the beans. And so we got the soybeans in the gap there, 4 inches or 4 rows on 7.5-inch spacing as well. And so far, I don't know how well you guys can see, but looking out here, you can't really even tell this was a wheat field. If you would have been out here a little over a month ago, right, is when we were harvesting the wheat. The field looked brown like a wheat field, and now it looks totally green. A soybean field. You can't really even tell without getting out here in the field that it was wheat.
Yeah, Dylan, if you remember, that live I did a few weeks ago was actually in this field, and it looked very wide open, but now we have basically gotten almost complete canopy closure out here.
I remember that live, and I didn't even recognize this as the same field. I just thought you were in a different bean field. So that's amazing how well it's closed up.
Yeah. And you said you got 3 inches of rain?
Yeah, so about 2 weeks ago, we had 3 inches of rain, which really helped. And we're standing out here under where the pivot hits as well. So that, it just takes time, and you got to be patient. We've also done some foliar fertilizer applications. The local co-op got we were using sap testing, but the local co-op got I don't remember exactly what the tool is, but you come out and you gather some leaves, and they can actually test it right on the side of the field. And it shows what kind of nutrients it's deficient. And so we put on probably 2 passes of foliar potassium since then. And the beans seems to have responded really well to that.
And so
Wow.
those are some
I
of
will
the,
also say this is probably the best our soybeans have ever looked at this point. So this is we're about 4 years into trying to figure this system out. We learn something new every year. The biggest thing that we've learned so far is you kind of got to try to not grow very good wheat. Even with leaving the gaps out there, you could probably still pretty easily grow 100 bushel wheat, which will surprise a lot of people. Even solid seeded wheat, nobody really grows, just solid seeded irrigated wheat where we live. But 100 bushel would probably be kind of what you would expect, I guess. And even leaving those huge gaps out here, you could probably still hit that if you fertilized enough for it. But then that really draws back your soybeans. And so the soybeans are the higher value crop in this scenario. And so you're trying to grow, your full potential of soybeans, and then the wheat adds $300, $400, $500 an acre to your bottom line is kind of the goal here.
Wow. So you've been trying this for 4 or 5 years. What are you guys thinking going forward? Does this seem like it's something working well for you? And are you going to continue doing it or expand acreage, or what's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, it's been working pretty well for us. It's not hard to beat monocrop beans for us, in terms of what profitability can do. And so, yes, we actually have not grown just straight soybeans for probably 3 years now. This is the only way we grow soybeans is with the wheat on our operation at this point. The biggest struggle to implement more acres is we're always doing it following corn. And so depending on corn harvest, the first couple years we did it, corn harvest was fairly early for our area. So it was easy to go in and plant a lot of wheat. And last year it was a little bit later. And so like this field specifically, I think we didn't drill the wheat till about the 15th of October, maybe the 14th, which is kind of right towards the end of the insurance deadline. And there's a reason there's that deadline there, just kind of how averages work. That's kind of, about the end of when you want to be planting wheat. If you're trying to grow wheat, probably ideally in our area, you'd want to be planting around the 25th of September to the 1st of October. And so, that's probably the biggest drawback is you just don't know when corn harvest is going to happen. And I mean, the other thing, you can't just hit the easy button on this. You got to think ahead. What are all your passes for going through the whole season, right? And so the schematic that we have come up with, it just makes the most sense because we got a 40-foot drill. The soybean planter we built is 40 feet, and then our sprayer is 120. So that all lines up pretty easy. The thing that kind of throws us off is our draper head is only 35. But the way we have this designed is it's symmetrical all the way across. So it shouldn't really matter as long as whatever you're running, like for a machine, whether it's a combine or a tractor or whatever, can either be set up on 60-inch centers for the tires or 120-inch.
Okay. So I got one more question. I think we're almost out of time, but my next question is, what do your neighbors think about this? And are they thinking they might ever consider trying beans like this?
I probably got more questions about it this year than ever before. The first couple of years, I've heard people say, well, gosh, you planted a whole quarter and you had your drill plugs. Like, yeah, but it was symmetrically plugged. Well, the reason I met Chris is because another guy in the county actually tried it. And so Chris was working through, he had to write something for him so he could get insurance for it. And so that's how I met Chris. And so, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if any more people catch on to it. But so far, it's been working well for us.
Yeah, and something to know is we'll be seeing more Nolan. I'm going to be doing some on-farm research with him this next year with this particular relay system. I'm going to get a hold of Nicholas out in North Platte, and we're going to get together and put together a design so we can get this into some on-farm testing and see if we can't convince some more people in the state to try it out.
That's excellent. Well, it's good to meet you, Nolan, and thanks for bringing them on, Chris. Everything starts somewhere, so it's exciting to see these on the ground floor, and I'm really excited to see what the next 5 years or 10 years looks like for something like this in that part of the state.
Yep. All
We'll
right,
see you
and I'll
guys
see
later.
you. Yep, and I'll see you in about an hour.
Excellent. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. So we've got David Wangila on here next. David, can you turn your camera for? Oh, looks like you're trying. Ruby, are you up now? Ruby, I don't have you till 10:50, I think. And we can't hear you either. Do we have competing live streams happening? Can you hear us, David?
Yes, I'm able to hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Oh, excellent. Ruby's just doing some checks. So I'll pin you, David, so we can roll.
Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you good, David.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity this morning. So my name is David Wangila. I'm the extension educator focusing on water and cropping systems for Clay, Thayer, and Nichols County. This morning, I'm here in Hebron, Nebraska, in Thayer County. And today I'll be talking about alfalfa weevil. Alfalfa weevils. I'm in an alfalfa field, and as you can see, it's ready for harvesting. Lots of flowers already bloomed. And I talked to the grower. He was to come in and cut it. But because of this video or this presentation, I requested that I do the presentation. Then he comes tomorrow and cuts it. So thank you so much for this opportunity once again. So I would like to start by saying why is it important? Why is alfalfa weevil important? Alfalfa weevils causes a huge yield loss in alfalfa, especially the first cutting that happens sometime in May in these parts of South Central Nebraska. Foliar feeding on leaves actually destroys or actually lowers the quality of alfalfa, besides actually also decreasing the yield. So basically managing it's important because with the current commodity prices, the current price of hay, which is 1 ton ranging between $90 per ton to $300 per ton, really, and the cost of inputs, it's a lot that farmers are going through, and managing it, ensuring that you can save on insecticide use, ensure that you're able to get and harvest good quality alfalfa, it's very important. So under the integrated pest management framework, the first thing that we always look at is identifying the pest, because if I talk for all day about alfalfa weevils without really telling you what an alfalfa weevil is and how to identify it, it won't be important. So I'll do a quick see here to try and see whether I can get all of the weevils. I know it's large net in the year. When taking the alfalfa, it looks pretty much good. There is no feeding, but hopefully we get some weevils. Good. Just trying to go through here. Yeah, there you go. We're lucky to see one adult here, an adult alfalfa weevil. This is the typical timing for us to get lots of adults. We don't expect to get lots of larvae at this time of the year, and definitely we've gotten an adult. So when we talk about alfalfa weevils, the adults are actually brown, and at the back of that adult, it has that dark band. The size of that adult is basically an 0.18 of an inch. So basically, when you take 1 inch, divide it into 8 equal parts. So the adult is basically just almost 2 bands of that inch. So when you look at a larvae, right now, as I've said, we don't have lots of larvae, and it will be tough to get some of them. But the larvae, the way to identify the larval alfalfa weevils, they are basically small worms, and they are they have a characteristic white band. I have a picture with me here. Eager to show that. So we're basically looking at this green guy here, a green larvae, and it's pretty much tiny. It's 3/16 of an inch, and it has that characteristic white band on the back. And also look at the head capsule, it's normally black. So the two characteristics, once you do sweeping or you see feeding on your alfalfa and you sweep and you find the larvae that has a white band or running from the head to the end of the abdomen, the white band and the black head, that's an alfalfa weevil. There is its cousin that's called a clover leaf weevil that looks pretty much similar, but a little bit different. The way to differentiate the clover leaf weevil, it doesn't have that black head. The head is brown. So that's the difference. And also to see the different adult of alfalfa, the clover leaf weevil, the adults are actually more dark in color and they don't have that dark band running on the back of it. So given that we've already identified the alfalfa weevil, next I want to say that the second step under integrated pest management framework is actually to monitor for the pest. This pest is a main issue here in parts of South Central Nebraska and Hebron. To be specific, we had a lot of issues by mid-April. So this year was a different year. So to monitor for alfalfa weevils, we have the growing degree days. Alfalfa weevils needs a base of, we work with a base of 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Once we get to that threshold, there is development process that takes and the insect starts being active. And more importantly, it needs to have an accumulation of between 200 to 300 growing degree days. So here in Hebron, we already accumulated around 227 growing degree days by 12th of April. By mid-April, we already closer to 280 growing degree days. And I was in this field on 15th of April, and I was able to get a mix of adults and also larvae alfalfa weevils. So given that we've identified that actually monitoring is important and also the timing by following the growing degree days, once you're closer to accumulating closer to 250 or 200 to 300, that's a perfect time for you to start going through your alfalfa fields. Check to see any signs of alfalfa weevil damage, especially on the leaves. And next, if you see some damage, you can do a quick assessment of what the pressure is like by just shooting a sweep net, and you can basically check how much or what's the number of weevils that you have in any number of given sweeps. But for you to go to step number 3 under integrated pest management, you need to establish an economic threshold. So for you to do an economic threshold, what we do, we recommend that you use this method that we have. You get a bucket and something to cut. You can just break the stems or use the scissors. So aim for the field. All this is our alfalfa field, 80 acres of alfalfa field. So for you to sample, you need to follow a sampling pattern of letter W or actually M. So you walk randomly, forming like an M shape, and make random stops as you keep walking. And at each stop, collect 6 stems, random stems, put them in a bucket, and then we'll do shaking. So we make 5 stops. At each stop, you collect 6 stems. So for the sake of this demonstration, I will not collect more, but this is basically what you do. Just keep walking. And that random stems, ensure that you can actually just break them. Ensure you don't shake them because some of the larvae might fall. So this is assuming I'm making that M shape as I keep scouting around this 80-acre field. You might need to adjust the number of samples that you take depending with the size of the field. If you have a 200-acre field, then definitely you might need to collect more samples than what I'm talking about, the 30 stems. So once you have all your stems, just shake them within the bucket, the 30 stems, and check through the leaves because some of the larvae form a C shape and they can actually the tiny larvae can be still on the leaves. So given that you don't have anything, keep this, they are very important, and go through the bucket, count the number of larvae that you're able to see. So that's number 2. Number 1, we've cut the stems. Number 2, you count the number of larvae. These stems, you use a meter ruler to measure the length of the stems, how long they are. Do an average of those 30 stems. What's the average length in inches? And once you have that ready with you, ask yourself or check the current market price. What's the current market price for a bale or a ton of hay? That's data number 3 that you need to have with you. Once you have that, then you need to know what is the cost of control. How much is it costing you to control, depending on whatever product or insecticide that you want to use. So once you have the 4 pieces of information, we have the already developed economic threshold tables that you can use. If you want to get to access those tables, you need to go to our website and you'll be able to get to those tables. Just come with me.
So David, we're almost out of time here. Where can they find that resource? What website is that on?
Repeat your question, please.
We're out of time. I think we got to transition over, but can you tell us where they can find that resource for the tables?
Basically, you need to go to our CropWatch articles, our UNL extension. So go to our UNL extension, get to our CropWatch article resources that we have. And in one of those articles, you'll get some of the threshold tables.
Okay.
So that's a great resource that you can actually use. I welcome any question if there is any. Thanks.
I think we've got to jump over. Abraham's ready, I think, in his field, and we're running behind schedule, but we appreciate it. And thank you so much for showing us this field.
You're welcome. Thanks. Have a good day.
See you, David.
Thanks.
Yep. Abraham, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So where are you at today?
Yeah, today I'm out at Scout. So that's South Central Ag Lab, just pretty close to Clay Center. And out here we have some research that I've been doing with Dr. Saleh Tagbayan at the UNL BSc department, mainly on irrigation scheduling. So if you want, I can just jump right into it.
Absolutely.
Great. So what I can just show you a brief setup of what we got here. So we have here a 2-span linear system that basically just runs down the length of this field. And then what we have is we have these different research plots which are set up along it. And then we have different irrigation schedules that are running throughout this field. And basically there's different types of systems we've been using over the last few years. And this research really has been in response to some interest from the NRDs in the area about what kind of tools they can recommend to growers that can help manage water use under case where there could be some allocations coming through for some of the NRDs. And so, there's been a lot of work done on irrigation scheduling in the academic literature, but a lot of those tools that come out aren't necessarily easily accessible to growers. They're things that end up in the articles, but not in the real world. So really what we're doing is we're trying to test some of the commercially available solutions. So the service providers who are offering irrigation scheduling services or tools that growers can use, and we're seeing how they perform. So for example, right now I'm just walking into some of the research fields here. And what you can see, for example, here is, we've got a plot here which has just been irrigated yesterday. And then, we can just see how we can have a zone where you have anything irrigated for a couple days. Here we've got a plot we just irrigated, and we can have pretty small zones that we can change our irrigation levels on. So just going to show you one of the sensor packs that we're using for doing our scheduling. So we have some treatments that are using soil moisture sensors. Mostly what we're using is watermark sensors, which are pretty common and often used by NRDs when they're supporting growers with cost share. So for example, what we can do, we can take a look at how we've set that up. So we've got to go a little bit in the canopy here, but we have one of these sensor packs down here. So
You're getting pretty deep in there.
yeah. All right. So what we have here set up is one of our watermark IC10 systems. So each of these is connected to 6 different sensors. Each of these sensors has 2, which are at 1 foot, 2 at 2 foot, and 2 at 3 foot. So what we did for research is just we have 1 row spacing, and we place them right in the row. Usually just once we get good emergence, probably, just like V2, V3, once we get a good stand, we come and we install these sensors. And the reason we have 2 per unit is just because a lot of these sensors don't necessarily always give you the most straightforward information. One sensor can respond really well, another one might give you funny readings. So we try to make sure in this case that we have at least 2 per depth, and then we take the average of those when we're doing our scheduling. And that definitely helps out when we have some funny sensors going on. Also, the IC10 system, what it does is it logs the data and then it will send it to a server. And then when you have that set up on your system, you can just log in and you see the real-time graph of the progression of water. And that really helps you, like a lot of growers may have to go out to the side of the field and read the manual data logger that has, this like blue box system where you got to go and download some of that data and then take it back to your computer, or just a handheld reader, which is just a snapshot in time. So this system, once you put it in your field, it has batteries inside. You don't have to put a solar panel or anything, and then it'll just be transmitting your data the whole season. So it's really pretty easy to set up. Basically, all we do is we take an auger, we push it down in the field, we get to the right depth, and then these these pipes are set up pretty much with the watermark sensor right at the bottom. So you just got to push this pipe tightly down into that hole, make sure it's backfilled well in good contact with the soil, and then just connect it up to the data logger, and you're done. So it's actually really easy to set up and monitor. So that's an example of one of the systems we're using. I can just get out to one of the other fields right now.
So how many different systems are you guys testing?
Yeah, so we have altogether, let me see, this season we have 3 different irrigation scheduling tools we're testing, and each of them we're doing at 2 irrigation rates. So the 2 rates being, a full irrigation and a deficit irrigation treatment. And so the deficit irrigation treatment depends on what kind of scheduling method. So the 2 methods, when the soil moisture sensing with watermarks, what we just saw, full irrigation would be irrigating anytime we get an average soil moisture content or soil tension content of negative 60 centibars. That's not directly comparable to soil moisture in volumetric terms, but that's the typical kind of value that a lot of either NRDs or the manufacturer might recommend for irrigation. So we have that as full irrigation, and then we cut back a little bit to negative 80 centibars for our deficit condition. Then we have another tool, which is the water balance tool. Basically, it's tracking estimates of soil moisture based on the environmental ET, the crop growth stage, and then the rainfall and irrigation data that we put in. And it does its own calculation of how much water should be in the soil without actually having a sensor. And so based on that, we use 50% allowable depletion level as full irrigation and 66% as deficit. So that's 50% of available water content, not total water content. So we have to take, what's the water content at field capacity, subtract water content at permanent wilting point. That's our available water. And then we take whatever half of that is our full irrigation. So I'm going to hand over to some of our summer field staff here. We're going to go a little bit into the canopy and maybe look a little bit at how these two plots have performed. So I'm going to show you one of the plots that has received around 9 to 10 inches of irrigation and another one that's received about 4 to 5 this season. We see if we can notice any differences.
Excellent.
Okay, so sorry if you can't see too well, but we'll do our best here. Basically, we're just going to pick a few plants in a row because, there's always going to be some variation just within a row, and it's easy to pick out the best looking plant, so we don't want to do that. So this plot we're in right now has had, like we're saying, about almost 10 inches of irrigation this season. One thing we can just take a look at, and again, it's not going to translate into like a scientific estimate of yield or anything, but we can just, as a quick look, you look at sort of pollination, sort of how did that pollinate? I mean, we're looking for is any sort of bare cob, which is up here, which hasn't been pollinated. This one is looking pretty good in terms of, not much there that hasn't been pollinated. The other thing we might look at is the abortion of kernels. So kernels where you can see, a little bit of kernel that has been set, but then aborted by the plant. Oftentimes that'll happen, especially if you're having drought stage after pollination. Usually up to around R4 is where you might get that. This one I think is looking pretty good. I mean, I brought here just a ruler just if we can measure quantitatively a few plants and compare it to the other one. Again, it's not necessarily scientifically going to tell you your yield or anything, but just so we can have a comparison. So it looks like here, maybe less than an inch, half an inch, maybe at the top, not very much. If we look at maybe another one here. Again, this one has a little bit more, right? So we can see here, probably VT in this area was, around early July. So around that time, it was actually getting really dry. And we didn't have any rain probably for 10, 14 days before that. So the plots that were getting irrigation from that time up to now really would be in the best condition. So this one looks like maybe we didn't get pollination about an inch. Looks like maybe a few of these aborted kernels, but not too many. So I think that's not too bad either.
And Abraham, we've got about 30 seconds left. How does this compare to the other?
Okay, so I guess we don't have time to go to the other one. Maybe one other thing we can look at, again, it's just sort of indicative. It's not necessarily going to tell you anything too scientific, but we can just look at sort of how many leaves we have below the ear leaf here to see how much sort of premature senescence we might have. So as the plant, gets more mature, it'll transfer some of that energy from the lower leaves, especially going up into the grain. And so the more healthy the plant, it'll continue growing for longer and you get better grain fill. So we can see here's like 1, 2, 3 pretty healthy leaves. This one is starting to senesce down here. So I probably wouldn't even call this a healthy leaf anymore. But sometimes we might look through and see, we can see, okay, this treatment is having, 3 or 4 healthy leaves at this stage. The other treatment has 2. It's a sign that, plants are already starting to remobilize some of those nutrients back up to the grain. And at the end of the day, the quicker that happens, it'll have less carbon fixation that can go into the grain for grain fill because the plant will just have less time to mature. So there's just a few things that we've been looking at just as diagnostics between one treatment to another.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for showing us that. I mean, water is more important than ever, and water use efficiency on such the mass amount of irrigated acres we have in Nebraska. It's extremely important. So thanks for sharing your research with us.
Great. Thank you very much.
Have a good one. Bye.
All right. Bye.
So it looks like we've got Ruby in here. And where are you coming in from, Ruby?
Okay. Oh, did he say? Yeah. Okay. So Ruby Collins here. I'm coming here from Red Willow County, and we're in one of our on-farm research sorghum plots. Overall, sorghum looks pretty good. We've got, some of it's headed. Mostly we're at boot stage here, though. And so the main thing I kind of wanted to focus on today was this pest called cornleaf aphid. And so we'll try and see if we get some picture of that. And so it looks pretty alarming. And so, but when we look a little closer, we can see some other things happening here too. Cornleaf aphid, this is a small plant-sucking insect. It's kind of bluish green in color. It has really dark cornicles, we sometimes call those tailpipes.
Yeah.
When it gets warm, they can be a little more pale in color, but typically you're going to see this blue-greenish color. They also produce honeydew, so the leaves are also really sticky. Okay, so on this one, I would just like to show that we've got a lot of good predation going on, and then some of these natural enemies. Okay, so on this leaf, is it focusing at all? Kind of, okay. So we have, some aphids that are alive, but then we have these like kind of off color, they look swollen, but we call these aphid mummies. And so these have been parasitized by a parasitic wasp, and there's a lot of them on this leaf. So there's a lot of good control already happening here. I've also noticed lots of, of course, our ladybugs. Those are some of our good ones. And then I think we have, if I could catch it, this little guy, that's the larvae of our ladybugs. So he's out there eating a bunch of these aphids too. And so while this does look concerning, there's no need for treatment in this field. Now, where this gets concerning for people is that there is an aphid out there called the sugarcane aphid, and it's not this far north yet. But what they do is they produce a lot of honeydew, and then you get things like sooty mold that come in and really affect the plant. So overall, the sorghum field looks really good. And, I just throw out, if you'd like to come see it in person, we'll be having a field day in this field on September 9th. Any questions?
Ruby, the video quality was amazing. We could see actually really well all those aphids on there.
Good.
And you had those predators too. So a question I have is just if an insecticide was applied, is there a chance that you could get rid of the predators and the aphids would take off even more?
Yeah, and that would be, my biggest case against doing that. And there's, I showed a couple of predators, but I've been looking at this field a lot, and there's a lot of predators in here. So yeah, we wouldn't want to do anything that's gonna, deplete that population. And also, we don't want any spider mite flares or anything like that. So
yeah. Wow. So your on-farm research trial that's there, when did you say you're going to be showing that off to people?
September 9th.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ruby. Let me check. Is there any other questions in the chat? What else are you seeing in that field, Ruby? Is there anything else out there? Any leaf spots or anything?
Not really. Sorghum's really a great fit for Southwest Nebraska because, we're pretty bad drought here too. And, it was a little slow to get going, but it looks great. And, I've not seen any disease or anything like that. The stuff that's already headed is looking good. So, we'll just keep watching it throughout the season, and, hopefully nothing does show up. So.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Ruby, for joining us. It looks like a really nice day there in Red Willow County.
Yeah, hopefully it's bringing rain. So.
Good luck.
All right.
We'll see
Thank
you later.
you.
Thank you so much. All right. I think I saw Ritika was joining.
Hi, Dylan.
Hi, Ritika. How are you doing?
I am good. So we're here at the Richardson County soybean field today.
Ritika, your camera's stuck sideways. You're sideways on the screen.
Oop.
You could go vertical, or I don't know if it's locked sideways, maybe. We can see you the right orientation now, so that works.
Okay. Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me fine?
We can hear you great.
Okay, I looked at my network and it shows 5G, so hopefully you can see everything nicely. Yep.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it was sprinkling here a little bit just right now. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do it from the car, but then it stopped again. So here we are. So we are here in a soybean field. It's a dryland soybean. And let me show you the field real quick. So this is southeast Nebraska for you. Lots of hills and slopes and the dips you can see in the field. And this field looks pretty good, but we are doing an on-farm research in this field. So basically we are looking at different AMS rates. So we have like 4 different rates, 0, 50, 100, and 150 pounds of AMS per acre. And this soybean was planted, I think, late April. And there was like a rye cover crop before the soybean. And right now, it's at about R6, which is the full seed stage. So let me show you the plant real quick here. I don't know if you can see it, but like if I just plugged one, it's in my pocket, but it looks like full seed right now. So there
Oh,
you go.
excellent.
There's the seed. Yep. So earlier in the season, we took some stand count, and in the spring, like the southeast Nebraska, we received a lot of rain. So there was a ponding in the field, and it looked pretty bad. But now, right now, it looks really nice. But if you look at, I was just looking at the stand count numbers this morning, and some of the spots in the field has had about 30,000, and the average was about 80,000. So it looks so much better now. So that's really nice. And around like beginning bloom, so around R1, we took some tissue samples, and the sulfur looks pretty good. Everything looks pretty good. So I don't think we'll see much difference. And even visually, you can't really tell that if there's like different rates applied. So nothing much going on there, but it will be interesting to see at the end of the season if we see any difference in the field. And then if you look at some of these plants here, you can see some dead plants here and there around the border of the field.
Uh-oh.
Yep. And there's
What are
some
they?
Japanese beetle. Yep, I will talk about that in a minute,
Okay,
but
good.
you can also see some Japanese beetle feeding. You can see lots of grasshoppers. I don't know if you can see them, but
Hmm.
that's what's going on. And I plugged one of the plants here. So, and I don't know if you can see this, but you can see I kind of split them open. You can see some ductus stem borer over here.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
this
we
is
can
what
see
it
it.
looks like right now. Yep. And then I also found this tiny little borer. I don't know if you can see
Oh,
them.
you captured it. Good.
Yep, I did. And there was one that was moving right in the stem, but I think I lost it somewhere here. But like if you look at the plant closely, you can see those where the
Wow.
borer went in. You can see that spot right here. And then I also found a tiny little soybean gallmeas. I don't know if you can see it, but it's really small. You can see that little
Oh, you
orange
got it.
thing
Was
here.
it in those same plants?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
So
those
I
poor
just plugged.
plants.
Yep, I just plugged a couple of those. And then, interesting enough, in one of them, let me show you the one that I just pulled out. You can kind of see that white spores outside, the fungus spores. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
And if you look at them closely, you can also see like a red color. So I think
Could,
it's a red crown rot. I don't
could
know
you
if you
hold
can
it a little
see it.
further away? A little further. There, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see that plant. Maybe I'll make a time to come get some samples from you.
Yep. And like if you look at the leaves, they are almost all necrotic, pretty much dead right now.
Wow.
But you can see that white fungus outside
Mm-hmm.
here and that red little spores in the
So
stem.
we see a lot of co-infection, oftentimes on the gallmage plants. I think the gallmage are getting in and really causing the main issue,
Mhm.
especially on that field edge where you were showing those ones that were wilting and dying back. But yeah, it's tough when they've got gallmage and then they get a fungus that hops on there that's probably not we don't know how much it contributes, but it's definitely not making things better. And then they had deckies inside of them as well in that case too. So
Yep.
those
So lots of things going on in this field.
bad
And
situation.
yep, I tried to look for STS too, but I did not find any. But I know last year we had a lot of SDS going on. I know you were here and we scouted some of the fields. And one of the field that we scouted last year, it was like right adjacent to this field. And we saw those like the blue fungal spores. I did not saw those this time, but definitely a lot of things going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember last year, I think it was August 29th, I came down and we drove around and looked at a bunch of fields. So it's only August 12th. So there's unfortunately a lot of time for things to go bad still.
Yep.
August, everything tends to show up that seemed to look good in July. So we'll keep watching. Um, what
Mhm.
what's corn look like in your part of the state this year so far?
So I haven't been in much of the cornfield, but we don't have disease like last year, I guess. We had we did I did see some northern corn leaf blight and some gray leaf spot here and there, but not a lot. And most of the growers here, there's like we don't have a lot of irrigation here, so that's why we don't see a lot of those diseases. But I know like last year it was like swiped out like with the tar spot, and I also saw some common rust, but not any southern rust. If any, it was very little, so not anything
Yeah.
significant, I would say.
And the southern rust was pretty bad in your area last year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're starting to see it show up. Tamara's been updating the map of where southern rust has been found this year, but it's showing up, but it's just not really taking off like it did last year. So just
Hmm.
because it's here, it's not a huge issue yet, but hopefully we'll get lucky and we won't see it blow up like last year for sure.
Yep. And I don't have anything lined up yet, but I'm thinking of doing a field day in this field because we've been seeing a lot of things. So I think it will be a perfect spot for a nice field day. So I will keep everyone updated on that. But yeah.
I've got a question. You had AMS
Mhm.
rates in that field as the trial.
Yep. Hmm.
Have you said it wasn't, there's no visual differences yet,
Hmm.
so far. Did you happen to notice if maybe there were more or less insect pressure or disease pressure in those plots by chance?
I haven't seen like a significant difference between the treatments. And like I said, like the sulfur deficiency, it usually shows up like earlier in the season. And I took some drone images too, but you couldn't really tell much from those pictures. But there were definitely some very poor spots in the field, like, and I don't think that got to do with AMS. I think that was just because of so much of rain and all those things. And I also talked with farmer here, and they had to replant some of their soybeans too, but not this one. They did not. I don't think they replanted this field, but they did replant some of their other fields. So yeah.
What caused those replants? What, what was the
It
issue?
was mostly because of the too much. It was too wet. It was just so
Yeah.
too much rain. So the plant was just like, no.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are you in Richardson County today? Is that where you said you were?
Yes, I'm in
Okay.
Richardson County today.
So Richardson County is a county I like to watch because it's the extreme southeast county. It's like Missouri down there. So I know that a lot
Yep.
of
So we
Nebraska,
have Missouri, we have Kansas, we have
yeah,
Iowa. So everything, it's like a hot spot.
yeah. Well, I know Nebraska got planted earlier than Missouri, I think, this year because Missouri kept getting rain. So you guys might have been getting some of that weather that kept them out of the
Yep.
field.
And I know some farmers like around the Kansas City border, like they planted like uh early April. So they were like already in the field, like waiting to get out there. So like with the rain. So yeah.
It held them back. Okay,
Yep.
well, I think we're out of time, but I noticed in the chat, Justin commented that he'd be happy to join you for a field day down there too, and I'd offer as well. I'd like to come down and see that area again later in the month and see what's going on down there compared to last year. So thanks for joining us today, Ritika.
Mhm. Yep. Thank you so much and see you guys. Bye.
We'll see ya. All right, next we're jumping up to Chris Termundi again. Chris, are you back in the room? There we go.
Yep, I'm here. I'm in Gosper County now.
Great.
Between Elwood, Smithfield, and that area, and I am in a cornfield. If you couldn't tell right now, and what I wanted to talk about out here was this year we're seeing more northern corn leaf blight, and you're going to hear me call it NCLB just because that's a lot of words and I only have a limited vocabulary. So let me switch this camera around. Get my hand out the way. All right. So NCLB, northern corn leaf blight, generally we'll see it every year, but it's not a real problem. And I wouldn't even call it a problem this year. We're just seeing more of it. But it is a pathogen. The pathogen will overwinter in residue. It will, if you plant corn into that field again, it'll generally start in the lower canopies and move up. And the symptoms you're looking for on the corn leaf are going to be cigar-like lesions like this, almost straw-colored. And I think you can't. I don't know how well you can see it, and I don't know how well my service is, but there are dark, almost like a sooty color in there, and that would be your spores on that older lesion. And part of the reason I wanted to come out here is the incidence in this particular field is actually quite amazing. It's just about every plant, but I would say probably 60 to 70% of the plants have at least one lesion. So the incidence out here is going to be 70%. But the severity, how bad it is on each plant, is not terrible. It's like 1 or 2 lesions a plant.
Yeah, so it's not really taken off, but it's there, right?
Yeah. This is a flood irrigated field. It's not pivot, so it's a little bit different than what we're used to. I mean, this is the old way of doing it out here. So the splash, you're not getting the splashing from like overhead irrigation we give you. And it is polycyclic, and by what that I mean is it can create new lesions all year long. So if it gets real bad, you can actually have a problem. And luckily, it's not real bad. We just have every plant seems to have at least one lesion. So I found that extremely interesting. It's something I wanted to come out and show everybody. Ooh, it looks like that's some tar spot right there. Sorry, shiny thing. Yeah, that might be some tar spot. And I don't know, Dylan, do you know if tar spot has been confirmed in Gosper County?
It has not been confirmed in Gosper County that I'm aware of.
Can you see that lesion right there?
I can.
What does it look like to you? It's not rubbing off.
What's the underside of the leaf look like?
Yellowing.
I don't know. I would have a hard time calling that tar spot from what I can see.
Okay. I'm going to pull this leaf and possibly send it into you later or send you some better pictures.
Yep.
So might be we have first report of tar spot in Gosper now, but we can't say for sure. But yeah, just the NCLB in this field is actually pretty amazing. Just about every plant. I'm seeing some.
Has this field been sprayed, Chris? Do you know?
I don't. Not off the top of my head. I would say it might have been. I'm not seeing a lot of gray leaf spot. Seeing a bunch of holcus. But not much else. So if they had corn in here last year and they had NCLB, that could be where it come from. But
Yeah, well, and in that part of the state too, it's gray leaf spot isn't it needs quite a bit more moisture than northern corn leaf blight. So I wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised that gray leaf spot's not terribly common in that field.
yeah, we've been warm and dry. So, but that's what I got out here. You got any other questions?
So I've got one question in the chat. Amy commented in the chat that it's not been confirmed in Gosper County, according to Crop Protection Network.
Okay, I gotta go confirm it, but I or have it send it in to
Yeah.
confirm it, because it looks like we have a couple of lesions of tar spot out here.
Yeah, well, it's not too surprising, right?
No, I think yesterday at the Scout Field Day, Cole, Tamara's student, was saying that it won't be a surprise if it makes it all the way across the state eventually. So,
Yep.
but yeah, that's what I got out here.
So can you summarize everything you saw? Everything you saw?
So what I've seen is possible, not confirmed tar spot, but mostly it's just the NCLB. The Hulkus spot this year has been incredible. There's been a lot more of it than normal. But this field, I don't see any bacterial leaf streak. Gray leaf spots pretty low, if any. So yeah, other than the NCLB, this is looking pretty good.
And we were talking about that map. So those maps are online at the Crop Protection. They're all hosted through Crop Protection Network, or you can find them all on there. Let me see if I can pull up the map library real quick and share it with everyone.
All right, and they're free for the public. That anyone can access them. In fact, if you're a crop consultant or scouting your own fields, if you see a disease, and even if you don't know what it is, you can use the crop lookout on there and send the pictures in for both corn and soybean. And those pictures of the corn diseases will go to Tamara, and she can have a conversation with you. And if it's soybean, they'll go to you, correct?
Yep. If soybean disease, they'll come to me. I think every different sort of area has a specialist listed. So I'm guessing insect ones might go to Justin and so on. But here I'm showing on the screen the tar spot map right now. So yellow is areas where we positively identified it this year. Gray is where it's been found in previous years. So likely it's in these counties, but no one's sent in a sample to verify it yet. But it's probably there because all around that county it's been found this year. It's moving further west every year. On this tool, you can look back and see where it ended up at the end of every or previous seasons. And I think it was 2022, maybe the very end of 2021 is the first year we found it here in Nebraska. And I started at the beginning of 22 and Tamara was showing pictures of where it was just found. And that was in Richardson, I think, and it's just moved west. So it's going to keep going and it's going to keep coming at higher and higher rates. But again, I've not really seen it get way out of hand so far because it's at relatively low levels.
Yeah, well, and the more you plant corn on corn, it does survive in the residue, and it will be back the next year.
Yep.
So,
well, thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Yes, sir.
And I think Justin just joined, so let's get Justin up there. We'll see you later, Chris.
See ya.
Hey, Justin, welcome.
Hey, Dylan, thanks for the invite to do this.
Absolutely.
I didn't have to drive far from campus to find a bunch of the things that I work on that, today, next 10 minutes, I'm hoping to cover some of those. These are things we're seeing. These are the concerns towards the end of the season. This is what's left for management. Ritika did a great job of setting me up with some of the key insects I deal with. And I'm standing in a field where soybean gallmage is going fairly well here. It's been here early in the season. It's killing plants out here. And if you look really close, there's quite a bit of variation in plant death from these little plants here to some that are quite a bit larger to some that have probably just died in the last week or so. And so the larvae started this season, they got in from adults laying eggs at the base of these stems, probably late May, early June, and they started feeding. And they essentially just cut off the circulation of these plants and killed them. And depending on the amount that got in and how quickly they developed, kind of dictated the death we're seeing out here. If you look at this field, it looks pretty good, right? Like edge looks bad, but ways out things look good. But the trouble is if you walk out here, it goes down a little bit, but it continues. So there's dead patches there and, here and on out. So it kind of gets covered up by these healthy plants, these less than healthy. And the big thing I'd like people to consider today as we're looking at a field that's infested where management now is pretty limited on stopping soybean gallmage, it's really about what's still happening, which is you hear all that cracking in there. If you can hear that, that's all the plants snapping over. Just look at how weak the base of these plants are that you can see there. So all of these are pretty prone to lodging. The storms we had go through this morning are going to increase the potential for losses that are out here. And so if you got a field that's heavily infested, you can't do a lot to save yield except for that early harvest. So if you got problems in a field, you've got history of pressure, scout those fields, do that push test, see how easily they break. Prioritize those fields to come out first. If you want a close up of what the larvae look like, I dug out a plant here and I'll just carefully I'll turn this around so I give you a nice close up on my camera. Maybe I can't turn around my camera. Okay, well, I'll do my best to see what I can see on here. So if I peel this back, you see all those orange larvae in there?
Oh yeah, that one's loaded up.
Yeah. So yeah, there's probably a good 40 or 50 in here if I peel off all the way around the stem. So I mean they're doing well. They're going to continue to emerge from these fields till about September. Their impact now is negligible. They're not going to be able to do much, but they're really setting themselves up for next season. The other culprit that's out here that I have an adult for in my fingertips here, and maybe you can see that at the tip of my fingers. Oh, I got a Japanese beetle hit me in the head as I'm doing this. That's Decty stem borers. So that's a Decty stem borer adult. They'll stick around, and continue to emerge in August here. What they're doing is they're coming into plants, and here's a key indicator is a petiole here. They got a little hole in it that's got kind of a darkened circle. If you split that, you find all the broken up tissue. But that Decty's way back, in June, may have started this process, got into the main stem, and is still feeding inside this main stem. So Ratika showed a nice photo of this earlier, but you can see all that decayed brown material in there. And actually in here, probably headed further up because he was trying to avoid me, is a Decty stem borer, and he's since fallen out onto the ground somewhere. They don't like, oh, there he is. They don't like being exposed to light, so they tend to hide. So what? This Decty's is in here, it's doing this. What's the real harm? That mechanical injury of just the feeding, negligible. Lots of research shows it won't do much. The trouble is what that Decty's is going to do in probably the next 5 to 6 weeks, which is move down to the very base of that plant and girdle the inside of that plant. Not cut it off. They're just going to really weaken the bottom. And just like our conversation on gallmage, those plants are prone to breaking over, falling down, and then the mechanical losses will accelerate. And you noticed I did that on the same plant. So the same plant has both soybean gallmage and Decty stem borer. And you and I have a student working on those interactions and disease interactions too. And he's showing the two insects will interact in the field. Not high frequencies, but they will.
Yeah, that's amazing. It just seems like Decty's was more rare even 5 years ago when I started. Is that the trend that you've been seeing?
Yeah, it used to be a south of I-80 pest on soybean. It's been native to the U.S. It's been throughout the U.S. It's been on sunflower, cocklebur, ragweed. The switch to soybeans increased past I-80, shot all the way up into South Dakota. And with that came an increase in the frequency of infested plants that we've seen. And so people should be aware chemical control for it's really tough. It's really about not using a short maturity group. That's number one next season. If you got them, use a longer maturity group, plant a little later if you can. All those things kind of help to push down the pressure a bit.
Wow. Well, let me check if there are any questions in the chat. So Justin, what other insects out there? We talk a lot about gall midge and dectes because we see a ton of them. But
Yeah.
I mean, what other curiosities might we see? I found a leaf yesterday that the tip had been rolled over and stitched shut, and there was a little worm in there. What might that have been?
Yeah, it's a silver spotted skipper. They're pretty cool looking. So if
Yeah.
you sometimes they leave those spots and go elsewhere. But if you find them, they got this big, cool looking head that's kind of dark in color and this light green body. They're very distinct as caterpillars, so they're pretty easy to ID once you know what they look like. But like you said, sometimes you find these clippings, you move them over, you don't see much. This field has silver spot skippers. I saw a few while I was out here, just the little clippings and turned over leaves. Most of what I'm seeing is Japanese beetle. That's the classic feeding from Japanese beetle. They leave these little veins in the leaves. They tend to feed upper portion of the canopy for the most part. And then we're also seeing grasshoppers. Grasshoppers tend to make these bigger holes. So this is a great example of grasshoppers. Nice big holes in those leaves. None of the veins are left. Versus I'll get a nice Japanese beetle comparison. See all those little veins inside of that particular leaf. So, I mean, there are a ton of defoliators. I could sit out here for the next hour and point out more and more defoliators that are in here and around the field. The big thing to pay attention to is how much damage are they doing to the plants and where are they feeding. So if I grab a random soybean plant here, I'll just break this one off. To look at that plant, up top, there's a lot of injury in places. In the middle, there's some, and in the lower canopy, there's certainly less. You got to take this whole plant into consideration when you're going to make, an application. And we're getting late. We're probably sitting in an R4, looks like R4 from a few of the upper pods. You hit R6, pointless to be spraying these fields. Research shows it doesn't pay off to spray that late. So next couple weeks is going to be kind of critical to watch. But what I would want to do if this was my field, I want to get out here with a sweep net, sweep up some of those insects, say, hey, am I just dealing with Japanese beetle? Are there some small caterpillars out here that are feeding? If there are, their consumption is going to increase dramatically over the next few weeks. Most likely for Lancaster County and northern Lancaster County, wet weather has kept them at bay with all the entomopathogens that can, pick up on those insects when they're under wet weather conditions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you see a lot of that on the field edge, but you walked in and you kept seeing it. That's a great point to make, that a lot of times beans can look really good from the road. Beans can look amazing somehow, and then you get out there and there's a few healthy plants or that are just hiding all the less healthy ones. So we see that all the time. And I think that's part of the frustration with beans. Is with corn, I think you kind of know what you're going to get. And with beans, it's like they can look good and be all over the board.
Yeah. And if somebody's like on here that's looking at a field going, geez, I got the same thing. How much yield am I losing in these scenarios? These late season plants aren't going to yield much. But from our research, you get out that 400, 500 foot mark, you got 10 feet of dead plants. You might be looking at a 6% yield loss at that far out into the field. Every year's different, but I think keeping track of that and knowing, and then for sure get a hold of us. We got varieties that we don't know their source of resistance, but some only die at 6%, others die at 60%. So decisions for next year are really important if you're looking at your fields this year going, hey, what's my main problem? And what are the potential things I could start with next season to dial that down a bit?
Yeah, excellent point. I'd love to recommend that. Often the best thing you can do right now is take notes and write down. So 2 years from now, if we rotate back to beans in that field and you're trying to just remember what your problems were, starting with what you have in there and selecting varieties that have good ratings against those problems is really the best time you can spend.
Yep. If this is my field and that's going to be my field next year, I better make some decisions. Gallmage is headed over there next spring to maybe do the same thing it did to this field this year.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Justin. You're coming in, you're in Lancaster County, right?
I am. I'm not far from campus.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate
Thanks.
it. We'll
Yeah,
see you
thank
later.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So next we're going to jump back to Talon. I think Talon, you said you're going to be in a cornfield. Let me jump over. Excellent. Can you hear us all right?
I sure can. And so hopefully my connection's a little bit better. I'm really glad that people are seeing good quality now
Yeah.
with some of the previous speakers. Justin did a great job showing off those gall midges. That was really cool seeing all those purple midges there in that stem. But yep, I'm in Buffalo County. I am showing off a cornfield here south of Gibbon. And really, I decided I wasn't going to walk through the field, but I went and collected some samples, and I'll just kind of show you everything that I've been seeing out here. So I kind of want to start with the main reason why I selected this field today. County, we have had a little bit of a surge in tar spot. And so hopefully you all can see that. But what we're seeing here is a rather large infestation, infection of tar spots all across this leaf. And so you can kind of see it all along there. Now, this is an extreme leaf. This is not what is happening on the whole plant, all over the plant. And so I've got a plant here that I wanted to show, because what we see is that tar spot overwinters in the residue, and it will cover the bottom leaves first. So there's a lesion here on kind of one of these bottom leaves. There's a couple more up here, a couple more down here at the base. And then as we move up, you'll see a decrease in the number of lesions, because it's slowly got to work up that plant. And so see that leaf there kind of around the ear leaf is going to be almost clean. And then up here all the way at the top, we're going to have almost no infection. And so one of the indicators that has is that this field had tar spot in it in previous years. Because if you start seeing it up here at the top near the tassel first, and then you start seeing it down at the bottom, that means that it's being newly introduced through spore movement from other nearby fields. So if you're in western Nebraska, like in Gosper County, that Chris had earlier potentially confirmed some tar spot in. If you're in western Nebraska, you may watch the tops of the plant up here and then look towards the bottom, just because that's how, when tar spot moves into a new area, that's how it'll show up. Other thing real quick here, I just picked a plant here on the side. So this here is pretty well into dough here, this field. So we're moving along pretty well. We've had some pretty good heat recently. This field is irrigated. And so one of the things that we've noticed with irrigation is that it can increase disease. And that's true for tar spot. My research specifically showed that with tar spot, you can see maybe not quite double the amount of disease under irrigation compared to like a rain-fed area. I imagine that as that research maybe moves farther west, we actually see more of that, because conditions in your dryland get more dry, less optimal for tar spot development. So other than that, here, I guess I've got a couple other leaves to show. Under severe conditions for tar spot, severe development, you can start to get some general plant chlorosis. So you can see there's another heavy infection here, and that is going to lead to some chlorosis there on that leaf. Because tar spot under severe conditions can cause premature senescence of those plants and rapid dry down. A couple other things that we saw in this field were some northern corn leaf blight. Chris showed some great examples of that earlier. This lesion's a little bit older. It's cracking and doesn't quite have that maybe like dusty brown black appearance to it. We've got plenty of spider mites here on the edge of the field. I think we've seen plenty of that. It's nice and yellow, that stippling effect caused by all those mites. So let's see if I posted a pretty cool image the other day video where you could actually see the mites. I doubt I'll be able to do that today on the stream, but if you do zoom in with a pretty good camera, you can actually get pretty close to seeing the actual mites there. I'm not sure it's quite good enough for identification, but still pretty cool. Obviously, we had some wounding here at the edge of the field, and so this is some common smut that we see. This actually can be used as a food, I guess. It's a little bit of a native food for down in Mexico called Guadalupe. And then we've got some other things here. This is, I believe, anthracnose. And I say that because this was all the way at the bottom of the canopy. And it's got these nice dark, kind of almost like rings in the middle. And
Can
so
you
I
hold it a
think
little
that is
further
what's
away?
further away, kind of like that.
Yeah, that's good. So are you seeing
Yeah.
little spots in there or anything?
Yeah, so there's nice little black spots that kind of turn out to be rings. And so I believe that's anthracnose. But awesome.
And how would you
Hey, Wes.
figure out for sure?
I would say that we need to send this probably into the clinic. And what they'll do is they'll do a nice tape mount to this leaf. And what they'll see is they'll find like a little black glob with like little spikes on it. And that's like a servuli. I'm sure Tamara and Kyle could probably correct me, but
I think you're right.
That's kind of a defining characteristic of anthracnose. And then this here, we do have a little bit of Goss's wilt, which this is an old sample. It doesn't quite have that water soaking anymore. There's not really much freckling going on. It kind of seems that they had quite a bit of wind recently and kind of tattered up some of those leaves.
Like multiple times earlier season.
Yeah, so it sounds like this got some hail early on in the season a couple of times. And so Goss's wilt will really move into those areas after something like that. But yeah, that's kind of what I have to show. This is an on-farm research plot. So we have Xyway applied at planting, Xyway LFR. And so we did those in strips across this field. And we're going to go test for crown rot later on in the season when we start seeing some ghosting. And hopefully we'll get kind of some data on how Xyway may or may not protect plants a little bit from that late season ghosting or maybe the early season infection. We're not quite sure what that active ingredients or what that product may do to help with managing crown rot. So
Yeah, so that goes in at plant, and I think there's some persistence in the tissue with that product, right? So that's going to hang out in the hopefully that crown and keep that fungus out, right?
yeah, no, I think that's kind of the idea is that when it gets applied in planting, that Xyway is really systemic in that plant. One of the most active ingredients that is like the most systemic through corn gets picked up and gets moved throughout that that whole stem and stalk. And so one of the things that we've seen with Xyway is that it's actually really effective for like gray leaf spot control and can prevent that early infection, especially kind of there through tassel. And so they're kind of looking at it there for how it may protect there early on from infection in the early plant stages for crown rot, and then seeing if that reduces the amount of ghosting, lodging, all that kind of stuff that can occur from crown rot.
Yeah. So yeah, another plug for the On-Farm Research Network. We're doing all of these things not necessarily because we thought it would be interesting. It's because a grower called us. So a grower called someone and wanted to know about something, right? And we help set that up in a way where we're going to tell, does it work scientifically through replication? And we're going to do it at a large scale. And we're going to calculate, did this make money or did this not make money? Because that's the bottom line here.
Yeah, no, definitely getting to do the research on farm and in actual plots that may be more equivalent to like field operation, field level, I think is really important because there's only so much I feel like you can sometimes learn from a small plot that's only 4 rows wide and 40 feet long. So I think the on-farm research network does give farmers a little bit more information about how that's actually going to work on their operation, especially when they get to use their equipment.
Yeah, that's a good point. On their farm, so there's a lot of products that work, but for some reason they may or may not work on your farm. So it's another way to bring that home and actually see if it's making money at the end of the day. Well, thanks for joining us, Talon. We're gonna jump over. We've got Samantha
thank you.
Daniels back again. We appreciate it, and she's gonna talk about Western Beam Cutworm Trapping Network.
Yep. I'm back here again in Grant in Perkins County. And so I want to talk to you guys about the trapping network. So you can see that green bucket trap there. That is a pheromone trap for Western bean cutworm. We have these traps installed across the state, all the way from the Panhandle up to the Northeast, the Southeast, Central. And we're kind of winding down with the Western bean cutworm flight now. But these traps were installed at cornfields, and in my case, and in the Panhandle, some dry bean fields as well, in June of this year. And then every week we would come out and collect the sample and then count the number of moths. And this is helpful for timing purposes. So this can really help us with timing our scouting efforts. And also it can help us get an idea of where we might have higher infestations. We really want to stress the fact that we can't use the pheromone trap numbers to make treatment decisions. It absolutely cannot be used for that. We still must scout, but these pheromone trap numbers can really give us an idea of when do we need to start scouting? When do we really need to get out there in the field, consider our treatment decisions? But it's for Western bean cutworm, it's good to treat after the peak flight. And so the pheromone trap numbers really gives us kind of that peak flight information. And for me, I cover 3 counties, Perkins, Chase, and Dundee. And each one of my counties has usually a different peak flight date. So these pheromone traps give us more localized information than, for example, the blacklight traps that we have in, I believe, 3 locations across the state. So I'm going to set this down real fast just so I can open the trap and I can show everyone. So this is what's in the trap right now. I will be collecting it tomorrow. And this is actually not very many at all.
It looks like a lot to me.
Oh yeah, these traps for me get almost completely full at the height of the season. I think one of my traps, the highest I had this year, and one of my traps here in Perkins County was 1,700 moths, and that was just after 6 days in the field. So if you see that red strip, that's a pesticide strip. So that way, when the moths get trapped, they come in contact with that pesticide, and then it kills them. And then if you see, there's a kind of a little basket under the lid, and in that little basket, there's like a little rubber plug. That's actually the pheromone lure. So we get that pheromone lure. In this case, we got it from Great Lakes IPM. You can get them on integrated pest management websites. And that's what then attracts the male moths to the traps. Typically, we want to install these traps on the edge of the field that matches kind of the wind patterns during the summer. Most of our wind comes from the south or southeast or the east during the summer. So if we have our traps at the southern or eastern edge of the field, that's best, just because then the wind will come, it'll blow through the trap and then blow that pheromone into the field, and then that brings the moths out to the trap. So it helps us really kind of see what's going on locally in the region, but also in that field. So the pheromone trapping network this is the 2nd year that Nebraska has been involved. This network was started actually up in the Great Lakes and in areas of Canada. And so there's a website that folks can actually go onto. It's called the Great Lakes and Maritimes Pest Monitoring Network. And so people can go onto that website and they can track all of our trap count numbers throughout the season, pretty much in real time, which folks then can then use that information for timing their scouting efforts. Dylan, I don't know if you want to just do a Google search for Great Lakes and Maritime Pest Monitoring Network. And if you find the website, maybe put it into the chat. Yep,
I will.
there you go.
I pulled it up. I'll share it right now.
Yep, there it is right there. And now if you click on moth counts, and it's going to bring up,
Wow.
zoom into Nebraska.
We've got really good coverage across the state, it looks like.
Yep. So all of the red dots are Western bean cutworm. And if you also see, there's some down in Kansas. That was, I was able to connect with an entomologist down there to get this effort expanded into Kansas as well. And so they have Western bean cutworm traps, but they also have fall armyworm traps. So it's good to see kind of what's going on south of us, and we can kind of get an idea, especially with fall armyworm, which comes up from the south. If we're watching Kansas, we can kind of see, oh, how many moths they're getting and when they might end up in Nebraska. But for Western bean cutworm, we're kind of the epicenter, especially out here in the southwest, the west central part of Nebraska. We get a lot of Western bean out here. So one more thing, Dylan, I'd have you go up at the top. There's a tab that says WBC.
Yes.
And then what we can do is zoom into Nebraska again. And then just hit play. And what it's going to do is it's just going to show through the season. You'll see kind of how the numbers start to pop in those circles. They'll turn red. And that's when, so you can kind of see what the flight is looking like.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's a really nice way to kind of visualize how the flight kind of presents itself throughout the state. The bigger the circle, the more moths there are in that area. So it's a great tool.
Beginning of June, like the beginning of June, just a couple of them started showing up, and then through June and July, they really picked up.
Yes, and this year, it was a lot earlier this year because of I think we had such a mild winter, and so many degree days had accumulated that, I mean, I was getting several hundred moths in my trap, where the same time last year I had maybe a couple. So it was a big flight year this year for sure. And so I think one thing I definitely learned is I need to get the traps in the field earlier, just so I can kind of capture the beginning of that flight, especially when we have such a mild winter.
Yep.
So yeah, now we've also Pin Chew out of the Panhandle. We put together an article that we send out weekly with information on the cumulative trap numbers and what those peak flight dates are. And so all of that information is helpful for folks. Real quick, I did go into the field. I can show you guys, there's some old Western bean cutworm egg masses. So that's what an egg mass there, that's what that looks like. And then there's another one. Hatched egg masses usually look kind of like white and sometimes translucent. I also found, you guys probably aren't going to see detail here, but I'm pointing at it. That's actually a little ladybug egg mass with little hatchlings on it.
Okay.
So ladybugs, yeah, they're really cute. Ladybugs are actually really good predators, and they eat Western bean cutworm eggs. So it's always good to keep in mind when we're scouting. Another thing I'll show you guys is I did look in an ear. So this ear it's actually corn earworm. I didn't find any Western bean. They're probably in there, but I did find some corn earworm. So this is what the feeding kind of looks like, though, in an ear when we have a caterpillar in there. So, but yeah, if anybody is interested in getting involved in the trapping network, if they want to do trapping themselves or they want more information, they can absolutely reach out.
Absolutely. Yeah. If anyone watching, if anyone wants to follow up on any of this or has questions, ask in the chat or contact us at Nebraska Extension.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's all we have for that, though.
And Samantha, you showed us the black-eyed pea scouting earlier.
I did.
You wanted to tell us, I was asking about pod numbers because I didn't know anything about black-eyed peas. So how
Yes,
many
and
pods?
Yep, I completely misspoke on that. It's about 15 to 30 pods per plant. For whatever reason, I think I was thinking per stem or something, but 15 to 30 pods. I don't think our plots are going to, be on the high end of that. They might be around 10 to 15. We'll just have to see how they go. But some of the higher yielding varieties can have even more than 30 pods per plant. So, yep. So I apologize for that.
Oh, no, that's fine. You were showing us one of those stems that had a few pods on it. So I'm guessing they shoot up a bunch of stems and then they all
They
set.
do.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they're kind of an interesting bean plant just because most beans they don't have the pods at the top of the plant. So yeah, it's kind of a cool plant.
Well, I would think that'd make harvest go a little easier.
Yes, absolutely. They do.
That's excellent. Well, thanks.
Yep.
I've actually learned a lot today. So this has been neat seeing different cropping systems. I spend so much time in soybean fields. It's nice to get out and see other stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. This has been great. So
It
thank
has
you
been.
for organizing this, Dylan.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us again. I think we're going to jump over and see Amy Timmerman now. Hi, Amy.
Hello. So, I just took a little drive, Tamara and I. Currently, I'm in Holt County, southern Holt County. We're actually going to kind of merge a couple topics that that Talon, Ruby, and Chris have talked about. So I'm going to flip my camera around. We are actually, let me see if I can find my component, if it'll let me do it. Isn't that sad when you start working on stuff and then you can't find your buttons?
That happens.
If not, I'm just going to flip it around. So what we're at now, this is a double crop field. This was oat, and right now what you're seeing is sorghum Sudan grass. This was planted approximately 4 weeks ago. The oats came off right around the 4th of July, and it was double cropped in. Ruby showed us sorghum. This is same family, but this is sorghum Sudan grass. This is being raised 100% for forage. That's why it's a double crop system. The oats were taken off as hay. And then the goal is that this is going to be hayed late September. But as you look across here, we got some issues really clear when you drive past. I don't know if you can see it as well as I was able to see with my naked eye, but the color out here is not green. You can see stripes. This is very chartreuse in color. We have some major nitrogen deficiency going on out here, primarily due to the fact with the oats coming off. The grower here, we really limited amount of nitrogen put down. We didn't have very much residual. 50 pounds of N was put on in the pivot 3 days ago, and it's starting to green up. But one of the interesting things and one of the complications is I bring you down, and since I can't see the screen, you guys are going to have to help me out of here a little bit, is planting the sorghum Sudan grass in July is we have a ton of competition. And as you can look down this row here, I have crabgrass. Crabgrass is almost as tall as this sorghum Sudan grass. Partly the main thing with that is this was burned down right after planting with glyphosate to kill the crabgrass, but it comes back as gangbusters. So we're really limited on herbicide management with this type of plant system in this growing season and this time of year. Just so everybody knows, crabgrass does have a forage value to it. It doesn't put up as much tonnage, but it does have high protein and high digestibles for cattle. But the one things I do want to show you guys, especially when we're starting looking at disease issues. Let's see if I can get it down there. It's hard when I can't hold it. Here, I'm going to flip you guys. Just pull up the leaf. So I do have some flaring going on my sorghum Sudan on the tips. There we go. There's my camera. On the tips here, and there's a lot of leaf spots. Sorghum is known for having bacterial diseases. In this field, this is the second year of this rotation crop out here. Last year was rye, sorghum Sudan. This year it's oats and sorghum Sudan. But this is bacterial streak. We have a Pseudomonas and a Xanthomonas bacterial infection that likes warm, humid weather. What do we have in July? Warm, humid weather in the first part of July. And so it's causing some tip back. I have some spotting going on. But the other really cool thing that we see out here as we walk around, let me pull it. One that we don't talk about for diseases is my crabgrass. I actually have leaf spots on my grass. Hopefully you guys can see that. Can you see that, Dylan?
Yeah, we can see it.
So this is actually Cercospora leaf spot on crabgrass. It will not kill the crabgrass. It will just give it a nice spotted appearance. So it's kind of interesting to see a plant pathogen on a weed that we don't want. in the hopes that this could be a biological control, but it doesn't really do much. But they show very similar symptoms on the plants. They're both dark lesions, striping. On the crabgrass, it's definitely a spot. But to me, this is really interesting. We're dealing with a bacterial infection and a fungal infection, and how sometimes they can look really similar to each other, but are two totally different pathogens on the way they behave. And then when we look at management components for it. Now, management for the sorghum Sudan, we're not going to treat. It's a bacterial disease. There really isn't any products on the market. Plus, this sorghum Sudan is trying to outgrow it at this point in time, especially since we gave it some nitrogen. It's going to start growing like gangbusters, and the hope is that we'll be able to hay it here at the end of September. So totally a different cropping system. It's an interesting one. Tamara and I were talking, when she started and when I started, we didn't talk a lot about sorghum Sudan. It's definitely increasing in use and productivity, especially in grazing systems, and to be able to double crop it throughout the season, since I can do oat or any of those winter cereal grains and move our way over. So,
Amy, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen this driving around in certain parts of the state, but is this something that I've heard called cane?
Yes, they will call it cane.
Okay.
Also.
And then,
Yeah.
Are you in a sandy soiled area?
Yeah. Well, here, let me show you. We are 100% sand. We did get we got a half an inch of rain last night. Plus it was irrigated
Okay.
2 days ago. But can you believe this is after 50 hundredths or half an inch of precip in the last 2 days? I mean, it just.
Yeah. So that's
There's
kind of where
no
I think
biomass. And as you can see, yeah, I mean, it's dry.
Yeah, that's where I think I've seen more cane is in
but
sandier areas.
it's supposed to be able to handle the drought much better. It's supposed to be able to handle the drought, so that's the reason why a lot of guys in the sandhills will use it as a double crop system.
Wow.
So before I get jumped off, Tamara and I did want to show one more thing. So we were in a cornfield. Come to find out, we were in the wrong cornfield. We had a pin drop, and we talked to the producer that owned the field. He had no problems with us being in there. But when we went to the field that we were supposed to for tar spot, we had a little bit of a surprise.
That's probably the right word, I think.
What'd you find?
So Tamara's going to talk a little bit more about tar spot, and we're going to show you those pictures quick, Dylan.
Excellent.
Yeah, sorry about that. But you know what? The diversity of diseases in the other field was a lot higher. But when we actually ended up across the road in the right field, we have seen a lot more tar spot in that field, and that was why we were called there originally. And so I hope you can make out how much is on some of these leaves. And so many of the leaves are already blighting. We're talking about severities up over 20%, 25%, I would bet. Which are those two leaves? Yeah, these are a little more reasonable. And we know now, I think these were in the dough stage. And there's so much disease that if there was this much disease on the ear leaf and it was, back during a treatable time, I would have even recommended against treating it because it was already too far advanced. Wow. And so,
so the bottom leaf that you're looking at here, this is actually an ear leaf. The ear above it, where my fingers move in, that is the leaf below the ear leaf. Lots of difference in severity and incidence there, but there's quite a bit of tar spot.
It's a big jump, between on this lower leaf here, that was one below the ear leaf. Where we're looking at, I would bet we're getting up around 1-2%.
This was ear leaf. This was ear leaf.
This was ear leaf, and
Yeah.
this one was the one below.
Yeah.
But already, if it was during the tasseling to milk stage, this leaf would be about where I would recommend treatment before it got any worse. Because that would fit into that window of less than 5% where we can still get ahead of it. But there's a tremendous amount of pressure out here in this field, and from Wheeler County. And so a couple things we saw that I have not seen before. I've seen it on the husks before. This is a little more than I've seen on the husks. And so you can see these tar spot stromata on there. But then we also saw a lot on the midrib. I've never seen it that much on the midrib before. Maybe I didn't get a leaf of that. On the back side, those midribs had a lot of stromata on them. There's a few on this one here. So I just wanted to bring that up and bring in some of the management and timing associated with that. It would be too late to treat this field now at the doe stage to see economic return.
But the one thing, Tally kind of brought it up when we are looking at management of tar spot. We actually had a chopper drive by us. These leaves that are senescing very quickly on the lower canopy, we would definitely need to watch this, because if I'm going to cut it for silage, this is going to dry down way too fast. And all of a sudden, I'm not at the right water percentage to actually get it to ferment correctly. So being out there, and especially if it's silage corn, picking at the right time so we have enough green on the bottom for moisture, but then trying to get it at the right stage of that kernel to get the best bang for our buck is really becoming a challenge.
It is. And they've dried up a lot faster than the other leaves that we picked because of all the tar spots. So just a tidbit. And thank you all so much. Over and out.
Thanks, Amy and Tamara. We appreciate it. Okay. Well, I think our group is thinning out. It's 12 o'clock. We've been on since 9 a.m. running nonstop, and we've had a successful morning. I think we talked, let me show the map real quick of what we talked, who we talked to. This is our first annual Scout Nebraska Tour Day. We actually do go live every Friday during the season at 11 a.m. on this channel. So for anyone who's interested, you can join back every Friday and see us going live here. It's usually about a 10 to 15 minute segment where we join a different educator or professional or ag professional around the state just to see what's going on in real time in their fields. And we do post those afterwards as video, so you can see it after the fact as well. We were all over the state today, and I was surprised. We seem to have pretty good quality for a bunch of people on their phones and farm fields. People were able to show a diversity of things and some new production systems, some new ideas, the sorghum Sudan grass, the wheat, soy, interplanting. Those things were both fascinating. I learned a lot. I hope everyone who watched learned a lot. So I just want to thank everyone who presented today. Everyone did an excellent job. Here's that schedule again. We'll post all of this in post. And I last want to remind everyone of the bounty program. We do have the Scout Nebraska bounties still issued. We have one open for white mold and one open for tar spot. If you'd like a chance to win, all you need to do is record a short video, 5 or 10 seconds, of tar spot in a field in Nebraska. Post it to Facebook or X and use the hashtag Scout Nebraska with it. We'll find that and enter you in a drawing to win $100 and a Scout Nebraska hat. And that's going to be 2 winners per bounty. So white mold of soybean and tar spot of corn. And we're going to post a 3rd bounty this Friday, I believe. So watch at our live stream on Friday to see that. Last, I'd like to conclude just by saying again, thanks to everyone who watched today. If you do have questions or if you want to reach out to Nebraska Extension, all you need to do is go to your local extension office or go online to cropwatch.unl.edu. Thanks again for everyone who watched today. A lot of our resources came from the Crop Protection Network, so you can find those there. And feel free to reach out at any time because we're here to help. Thank you all.